my favorite song by Suicide Silence, about a plane crash. I think that one's a really good example of what I loved so much about that era of deathcore, and it was real ugly. And it wasn't just because of the shitty recordings, like that adds to it. The blasting and the tremolos, it was like getting you sawn into with a chainsaw, and the vocals were gross. And like the vocal, obviously, as a vocalist, I paid attention to it the whole time. The vocals would be criticized all the time, completely bullshitly and unfairly. And it's like people saying, "Oh, you cheated." Like Inhales is cheating. What am I cheating at? What have I won that I didn't deserve? What has happened is that I have made a noise with my throat, and it's the noise that I wanted to make. And that's it.
Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch. It's kind of a cool way for you guys to be a part of the conversation, as well as see the behind the scenes and the uncut versions of these episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribing, leaving a comment, liking the video, all that stuff goes a long way. Same goes for leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We have a striving community on Discord if you want to chat with other like-minded deathcore enjoyers, as well as just staying up to date with everything that's going on with the podcast. Last but not least, if you want to support the podcast, I'll be leaving a link down in the description wherever you are watching or listening on how you can do so, as well as links to everything else that I just talked about. With that out of the way, enjoy this episode. We have a really a special episode planned for you guys today. This one is going to be really fun. We have Alex of Black Tongue joining us today. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh yeah, man. I think look, we've had a lot of requests for you specifically, and I think when we posted about you coming onto the show, there was a pretty overwhelming sense of where's Black Tongue? What's going on with Black Tongue? Oh, Alex is the go. All this sort of stuff. So I mean, despite you guys not having put out anything in a little while, the hype is real. The hype is there. People are excited for everything you do. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this and to kind of talk deathcore and all this stuff.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I love the sound of my own voice.
I mean, look, I understand that. We started this conversation, me and you, behind the scenes, because you put up a little rant on Instagram, and you told me you could not wait to unleash hell on all these on the state of the deathcore scenes. I'd love to maybe dig into some of that. Like you were,
it's been simmering under the surface for fucking years now.
I mean, I'd love to kind of hear you speak on it. I mean, the gist of, and I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of what you were talking about in this story that you put up was, how Gent kind of, destroyed what was, the kind of more MySpace era of deathcore and deathcore in general, and kind of like made it regress in a certain sense. And I think Ian and I are pretty, we've shared that same kind of opinion for a while. I think there are other factors as well in terms of where deathcore went for a minute, but what's all that for you? How did you feel it, with deathcore in like 2012, 13 when Gent coming up?
Yeah. So, take everything that I say with a huge pinch of salt, by the way, because I love a bit of mischief.
Mm-hmm. We're just shooting the shit. It's all in good fun.
Yeah. But for me, even if I didn't, sort of realize it at the time, although I'm pretty sure I did, because you got to remember, I was at the perfect age, for coming up in deathcore. I was, I think when I heard my first deathcore track, I was 16, and I walked into my history class, and my mate Binksy, good lad, he was sat there, and he was just like, get your ears on this. And he banged some headphones in, and what was it? It was as Blood Runs Black. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then I think the next thing he put on was just the fucking intro to Entombment of a Machine.
That'll do it.
So yeah. So bear in mind at this point, I've been listening to like Cradle of Filth exclusively, like non-stop.
Okay, so you were already into metal and like extreme metal for that fact, right? Because for me, I mean, I think we're like the same kind of age, but for me, I was listening to, I think, like emo before I discovered deathcore, so that was a bigger gap for me, I think, than going from Cradle to Job,
Yeah, big leap, isn't it? But yeah, and I was like, obviously, I love like the theater of Cradle and stuff like that. But then I heard this fucking music, and I was like, "Ooh, that is definitely awakening something in me." And like, obviously, I was a kid, and I think without getting too in the weeds of it already, like one of the things that I've been really thinking about recently is like why people get angry at younger people for the types of music that they listen to, and I think. One of the problems with that is that with music being art and art being subjective, what it means to the person that hears it when they hear it or experience it or look at it or whatever is only important to that person when they're experiencing it and hearing it. So the fact that I didn't know the backstory, I didn't know where these bands were influenced from, is completely irrelevant. Like, because I hadn't paid my dues is completely irrelevant. And I try to stick by that now when, I hear new types of music coming up and I'm like, that's not for me, but it's fucking in for me. So it don't matter. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so we start with that early stuff and not a lot of, I didn't like everything. I didn't like all MySpace deathcore. Obviously, I fucking just hoovered up as much as I fucking could because, it was harder to hoover up back then. I think that was some of the beauty of some of it. It was you had to go looking, and it wasn't quite the same as death metal and hardcore getting traded with tapes in the 90s, which my fucking wish I was around for that. But it wasn't far off. Like, you couldn't just search for stuff. You had to stumble across MySpace profiles, or like it got a little bit easier when people started uploading YouTube videos, and you got like top 10 brutal breakdowns, which is, you've probably talked about on it before, is they were an absolutely priceless resource for people. Dude,
those YouTube videos single-handedly put a few bands on the map for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what I like, the styles that I didn't get on with that much. I still listen to them because it's like all you had. You're like, yeah, this is dope. This bit of the song I don't really like. Was the what I now think was like the mellow death influence on early deathcore, which comes from the metalcore side of it, because what was metalcore other than people just mixing hardcore with mellow death with like At the Gates and stuff like that? And I was like, I don't like this. I don't like the fucking galloping riffs. I don't like that. It's all like mellow death for me is just a garbage genre.
There's a lot of it in early deathcore, right? Like a whole. I mean, to be fair, like even As Blood Runs Black kind of skirts on that line too, right? Like super melodic type of.
Yeah, and Carnifex as well. And I fucking love Carnifex, you know what I mean? But they've got loads of that in it, and I'm like, not for me. But but the other bits of it, they make up for it. But yeah, it was there was loads of that, and I was like, oh, it was whatever. It's just what it sounds like. It's just not for me. It's just like with a melodic death metal, I feel like that's a juxtaposition. You know what I mean? It's like if I wanted melody, I wouldn't be listening to metal to start with. Like, I'm not one of these people that can only listen to metal, and I don't think anybody should be. I think it's silly. But if I want melody, or if I want, for lack of a better phrasing, if I want to dance, you know what I mean? I am listening to metal. I'm listening to something that was made for it. Metal taps into a very specific mood, feeling, and catharsis. So when people try to apply that to, or apply other, mantles to that, to that like paradigm. It just don't fucking work, and it's just like, well, it's like I'm almost getting something from this, but it's just not
the fight music, like the fight aspect, caveman aspect isn't there. the wanting to punch someone in the face type beat.
Yeah, and it gets too goofy because like people need to realize like I fucking love metal. I absolutely love it, but I understand that it's theatre, and a lot of what comes with theatre is a lot of goofiness. And the best way to enjoy metal is to really take it seriously when you're experiencing it. And then when you're not experiencing it, laugh at all of its foibles and problems, because it is goofy as hell.
Right.
But anyway, I got completely sidetracked as I knew I would.
I'm loving it for what it's worth.
That's what we do here.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's pretty on brand for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me just wet my whistle 2 seconds. So the stuff that I did like, I've now come to looking back on it, was the stuff that was like really close to grind, and it was really tied into grind. And I don't know if you guys got this where you were, but I remember listening to deathcore before everyone really started calling it deathcore. I had people calling it like underground metalcore, or just like death metal and straight like that. And I remember
the MySpace tags were death metal, hardcore, experimental. It was like
experimental. Yeah. Well, one of the ones in the UK, it'd always be grindcore, and you'd be like, all right, if a band has grindcore and it's those 3 tags that you're allowed to have, they're going to be this sound that I like, even though it wasn't grindcore. But there was some great grindness to it. And I think the easiest one for people to latch onto, just for an example, and just because most people have heard them, was my favorite song by Suicide Silence, fucking About a Plane Crash. And I think that I think that one's a really good example of what I loved so much about that era of deathcore, and it's that it was ugly. It was real ugly, and it wasn't just because of the like the shitty recordings, like that adds to it. But like shitty recordings alone does not an ugly song make; it just makes a shit song. So, but they were ugly. Like the blasting and the tremolos were just like, it was like getting you sawn into with a chainsaw, and the vocals were gross. And like the vocal, obviously as a vocalist, I paid attention to it the whole time. The vocals would be criticized all the time, completely bullshitly and unfairly. And it's like people saying, "Oh, you cheating," like Inhales is cheating. What do you mean? Explain to me in no uncertain terms
how one is less goofy than the other, right? Like, what it's like? What am I cheating at? What have I won that I didn't deserve? What has happened is that I have made a noise with my throat, and it's the noise that I wanted to make, and that's it. There's no cheating. You did the Cookie Monster thing. That's it.
Yeah, or even mic cupping, which is a bit different. I understand that, but how was that? That ain't cheating. It's like, right, this is the sound I want to make, and you make that by cupping the mic. I'm not lying to anybody and saying this sound's coming out of me. It's just, this is the sound. It's like, all right, I want to make a drum beat. Well, I can't do that with any part of my fucking body, so I'm going to have to buy a drum. It's just exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you're cheating for having band members. Yeah,
you're cheating.
So, the vocals were ugly, and they were like it won't even like, because now people I think are really obsessed with like technically proficient, like they want people that have got the technique nailed down when quite a lot of people don't realize that these vocalists are good, so you have to be good, but the vocals, like to get that like type of vocals, it's not difficult. You learn the technique and then you do it, and then you layer it loads of times behind the scenes. It's like great. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but it is put on a pedestal, I think, at the minute. But back then it was just, right, what are these fucking disgusting sounds that sound like, a toilet flushing, a cricket, scary. And someone go, yeah, scary. And it was great. And it was like, I feel like it was going in a really good direction. And those grindy elements are what I think they should have capitalized on and pushed forward with that. And I think it would have made, like, because at no point, because like loads, you'll know as well as I do, you've probably spoke about it on here. Loads of bands changed to try and appease death metal grogs.
Be respected.
Because it did not matter what you did. You were always a deathcore band to them. And then you fucked it because you've lost all your fans as well. And it pisses me off. I think bands were pathetic for doing that. You all know you fucking are as well.
I've got a theory on that, though. We've talked about this, right? Because I think back then, you know, because it's different now, but back then, a lot of people who were doing deathcore, there was no deathcore to be inspired from to begin with. So they were death metal heads. They were hardcore kids or a mix of the two, right? So I think some of these bands just naturally just went back to a style of music that they grew up on and that they enjoyed outside of deathcore, right? I don't think it was necessarily always selling out, but I can see sometimes how it was just an influences thing. But to your point though, it regardless always ended up in that scenario that you just explained, that they lost all their deathcore fans and they still weren't accepted by the metalheads or by the death metal heads or whatever. Like Job for a Cowboy is the perfect example of that, right? They were always kind of shunned regardless.
Yeah. If I may,
because even they didn't do that great afterwards. Like their albums are fantastic, and they don't have the recognition within death metal that they deserve for how good their albums are.
A new band would come out with Demonocracy today, like with no name attached to it. It would probably do better than Job for a Cowboy putting it out. Hot take, but I think that's kind of 100%. The reality.
Yeah, because they've been like stained by being a deathcore band, and it's like you're trying to appease people that don't deserve your appeasement, honestly.
Yeah, but another thing you realize very often is, as much as everything starts with people laughing about it or hating it or whatever, over time, like in many scenarios, it's someday you're going to find the right audience. So like, it's kind of a giving up type thing. It's like you're onto something and people are going to hate it because every time something is on the come up, people are like, that sucks. I don't want it. It's kind of a bad place, like small mentality of just like, I'm going to shit on it instead of going with it. But if you stick to your guns, and many bands did it, it's going to pay off over time, and it might take a while. And to your point, which was a very good point, you talked about inhales. That's strictly what I still do in music, and it makes me laugh every time I hear cheating. I'm like, it's not like GTA 3 with like cheat codes that you wrote. Like anyway, I did that too. So, but it's like, this specific this specific era when it started, of course it would be like you're mixing two different things, so both scenes were pissed off because it was like like hardcore was just like, you have no right to take and put it in metal, and metal was like, what are you doing with your hardcore? So you were pissing off two scenes at the same time. So like for sure it would be controversial, but as you said, I was also disappointed to see that, certain bands were like, stepping away from it instead of just embracing it and be like, it's our thing. So I just wanted to say it was a good point, basically.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, this will happen a lot, but my brain's just gone.
We're all like this.
But yeah, yes. So the direction of deathcore, I think it was there was elements to it. It might not have gone this way, but the best elements that I think really summed up deathcore were the things that differentiated it from death metal, and vice versa as well in the other direction from hardcore. And that was the ferocity and the youthful energy that comes with hardcore influenced music into death metal, which is itself already ferocious and evil and grim sounding. That's the match made in heaven. Do you know what I mean? Like it used to surprise me when I was young that even like death metal heads, they just dip your toe in it, mate. Just dip it in. You like what you feel. It's the water's great, and loads of people did, but the fucking loud ones, they couldn't do it. And do you know what? It's there's nothing complex about it. It is dumb people resorting to base tribalism over fuck all, as they always do in every aspect of human society. And it's just fucking boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it had the elements. And those elements, I think, were the grindy bits. Like, if you listen to About a Plane Crash, and you're like, this has got everything. Like, this has got the great evil sounding tremolos. It's got the blasting. It's got those mental, like, savage highs, that it was famous for. And it's got, just these, like, big, sluggish, like, brutal breakdown in it. That dun, 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 dun. It don't need to be anything else either. You just like, whoa, that's like absolutely
like the vocal patterns too. I mean, Mitch just like he would, right off the bat, like he would go in a different like weird pattern, but it works somehow with the music. Like I wanted to point that out because it makes it, because the song you just said, I listen to that EP still to this day, always, like Destruction of a Statue, all those songs. And I feel like the vocals also were a big part of just like, oh my God, like
everything about it was shocking, right? I think that the shock factor was like everything had to be that, right? Like how outrageous can this be? And I don't think that's what they went into it like thinking when they were necessarily making it. I think they probably just thought, oh, this sounds cool type of thing. But that was the effect, right? Like everything was over the top. Everything was in your face. Like I love a Black Rose Burial was like another great example of like that type of like grindy, like really in your face type of. I always love that shit.
Or even like really early. We Are the End.
Yeah.
Like, they became like a proper, like, just like pure deathcore, like, staple. But that early stuff, that's exactly what I'm talking about as well. And like the Partisan Turbine, even
Absolutely.
like fucking Waking the Cadaver, like that's getting really more towards, brutal death metal. But you could tell that they were deathcore kids as well. Like, and it's that nice edge. And that's like now that, music's doing as it always does and coming back around full circle, and we're not just getting the MySpace revival, and we're also getting this new wave of like bands that are tagging themselves as death metal. Anything on like Maggot Stomp, great example. But you listen to it and you're like, this is deathcore.
Yeah,
like don't fucking dance.
In 2005, you would have called it deathcore. Yeah.
And I love it because they're like, whilst that's not quite the same like edge that I'm talking about with say About a Plane Crash, it's got the old school death metal edge from like Morbid Angel or something. So it's like greasy is the word I can describe it. It's like when I listen to these riffs, I imagine like some like post-apocalyptic, like smog-filled wasteland of this horrible, like flightless dragon just making its way across the desert and that. And I fucking love it. I absolutely love it. And then it's got like the just straight up violence of hardcore, and you mix that with this horrible, grim, dark edge of old school death metal, and I'm like, yes, I've been waiting for this for fucking 12 years at this point, but fucking Gent got in the way.
Yeah, you know what? I keep saying that. I even said in my video of Suicide Silence. I feel like I'm always talking about Mitch, but like when Mitch died, honestly, it really killed the like deathcore was like, you know what I mean? Like it was like super. It really felt like he died, and then Ricky Hoover outside, leaving Suffocate, like all these cool things, like it was all going like this. And most bands were just like, as you said, on the come up with only bang, ding, 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 ding. So we're just, I was like, it hit me so hard that I kind of took a step back from heavy music for a while. And I went back to other stuff I was listening, because I was like, that's not for me, so just wanted to precise that I feel like this was a big thing, like Mitch passing and everything.
Well, he was, wasn't he? Like no matter what you think about him, he was the figurehead for it, you know, and you know, they had changed, like, fucking can't remember what he goes by on YouTube now, but he used to go as Sergeant D.
Yeah,
His video
Finn,
on
Finn
what happened with deathcore and Suicide Silence, and about them being like always been you know, like one step ahead of music, and same with Bring Me the Horizon as well. So, and they started to go down the you know, adding just like a new metal edge to things. But that was like, I think that happening and Gent happening at the same time. Like, again, pinch of salt is fine. Like, I listen to that music. I listened to it when it came out. There's some Gent stuff that I fucking love just bopping my head to because it's fucking groovy. But it after that, and you know, and I didn't mind some fucking opens. I don't mind some zeros, but every band started doing it, and deathcore went like bouncy. Do you know what I mean? It went.
It went the same kind of thing as you were talking about people converting to death metal, right? I think a lot of deathcore bands you started seeing like, oh, now it's like this. Now it's this more electronic sounding, you know, Axe effects sound with ambient noises like, and the bouncy kind of riffs to them. Yeah, everyone started doing it.
It went kind of like. A little bit like, you know, the really, really early 2000s metalcore, but without any of the punch. Do you know what I mean? Like irate and stuff like that. Just not, and like even back then, I was like, these riffs are shit. You know, like I didn't like it. And that coming at the same time as Gent, like everything went down the hyper produced, you know, thing because that was a huge part of that. And that's still being deathcore today.
Change deathcore. You hate Coming Out by Thy Art Is Murder, right? Like super over the top, like clean produced type of album. I'm not sure that sort of style would have existed, like that sort of production sound, if it weren't for the more modern kind of like Gent stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And they reshaped that album, single-handedly reshaped deathcore, right? Everyone was on that afterwards.
Yeah, I fucking loved it. That's the only time I've ever stage dived was fucking Ghostfest. And they were just like, they were playing, I was just like, time to go. Absolutely loved it. It was a fucking fantastic show. So Jen just fucked it for me because it as I was saying, it took away everything that I liked about deathcore and what I think, obviously I'm only one fucking man, what I think made it special in comparison to, you know, its two component parts, essentially, like more hardcore metalcore. Because obviously it's supposedly, you know, metalcore mixed with death metal, not hardcore. Mm-hmm. But at the time, because of, you know, as what always happens, just complete mislabeling of genres, metalcore was a dirty word back then because metalcore meant boy band.
Yeah. And well, to be fair, deathcore killed metalcore, right? Technically speaking, like the first time around.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, so you couldn't call it, because I remember when I heard metalcore used not as a dirty word for the first time, you know, in years and years and years. And it was somebody describing Kubla Khan. And I was like, fuck yeah, dude, we're back. Metalcore is back. You know, it doesn't mean, you know, August Burns Red anymore, which, you know, they're a fine band, but that wasn't what metalcore was originally supposed to mean. But then again, you know, language is fluid. You know, I have a degree in English. I should know that more than anybody.
especially the word metalcore, right? Like, because I think just what that word is comprised of is kind of like inherently can mean so many things, right? Like, obviously we had like the big like Unearth, As I Lay Dying, like Bleeding Through, like that era of metalcore, like that to me, that was metalcore, right? And then it changed to like, you say metalcore today, it's like, it's Architects, but it's also like people will call Under Oath metalcore, and you know, it's just like, it's all over the place. And you got these heavier bands like Kublai Khan and stuff like that. So it's like, it's definitely, it doesn't It's weird because it's one of those things, like, for a while I think we were so caught up in the specific namings of like subgenres, like being super like subgenres within subgenres, and I feel like now everything's just kind of considered metalcore. You know, it's kind of we've kind of reverted to the opposite, which I'm a fan of personally. I hate people fighting over fucking specific terms, you know, but music is music.
It's such a broad genre. It's like, you know, obviously it's a subgenre within metal, but the parameters of metalcore are so broad. But there's nothing wrong with being metalcore. It's like, because a lot of straight up death metal, you know, which I like a lot more as I get older. There's a lot of it that I don't like, and it's because it lacks dynamics. It's fucking boring. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, your riffs are kind of evil sounding, but they fucking meander. Mm-hmm. And like, because I'm not smart enough to get it, I fucking do get it. It's just you haven't written a good song. And it's like, it's not enough that your riffs are evil. You have to understand dynamics. And I think, you know, one of the things that's baked into metalcore is dynamics.
Yeah, deathcore too.
I don't mean that entirely, but like, and people, you know, like metalcore can be shit, real shit, and why everybody's first band is a metalcore band, because it's easy to do to like a satisfactory level. It's just getting, you know, beyond satisfactory that, you know, what sets you apart. Can't remember what my point was.
But what I wanted to say with metalcore, what I miss personally, like I love old August Burns Red, old Parkway Drive. Like I call that like heavy metalcore. Like it feels, and I could be wrong, but it feels like it's something that doesn't exist anymore. Like metalcore without clean singing. Like every time you see metalcore, they're gonna have. And it's not because I hate clean singing, but usually when I listen personally to heavy music, like if I want to listen to clean singing, I'm going to straight up go in other kinds of things like country or pop punk or whatever. So if I'm in metal personally, I want to hear screaming and heavy stuff. So like I kind of miss that era of just like, you know, August Burns Red for me is a good example, like old Parkway Drive too, like breakdowns, cool riffs, you know, like no cleans.
You played with like I Killed the Prom Queen, Alex, you know, like that to me is a great example of that too, right? Like I don't know, I love that shit.
I couldn't believe that. That was our first tour outside of the country. He was in Russia, which, you know, might never get to go there again, but oh well. Yeah, and we were like, Parkway Drive, like, aren't they that band that we've all been listening to for years? Because obviously we was all in our early 20s and stuff still. We're like, oh my God, and we got to play with them, we met them, and they're all like, well, you know, it's the same with every fucking band ever. Like, you all see each other, you know, like, for 2 minutes a day, and everyone's kind of just like, you're like, we absolutely fucking blew it. Like, our bassist at the time, when we had a bassist, he like didn't fucking have a strap or anything, and he had to ask one of them. He had to ask their bassist to borrow one and stuff, and like, whoa, here we go. And it was like, it was fun, like, and it was great. We had a great time. We only played like 2 or 3 shows, but it was mint. And then years later, we played this like absolute fucking bodged festival in was it Luxembourg or Belgium? 6K Fest, and they were there. And the coach was like, oh, boys, good to fucking see you again. It's like, we remember you. And I'm not going to do the accent. It's like, we remember you. And like, you know, you were just fucking, you know, like little babies, didn't know what you were fucking doing. It's great to see you, you know, get to see you now. It was great. It was really nice to see him. Yeah, that's awesome. So the shin for you.
But then,
and sorry.
Go for it, Ian.
I was just about to say, it's funny you say like things change with like Gent and stuff like that, because now I understand when you guys came in, because that was a slap in the face of like, let's bring back heavy, you know, like a real, like, not only did you bring back heavy music, but like, it was heavier. Like, it was another kind of heavy, if that makes sense. Like I fully remember, like, I always give this example of like King Conquer when they came in. To me, was like a new heavy in deathcore. I was like, what the hell is happening? Like those vocals,
you couldn't have imagined it until you heard it for the first time, type thing.
I mean, yeah, like, and you were talking about like sludge, heavy. King Conquer was just like, it was exactly that. Like, it was scary and those vocals and everything. And I feel like you guys, Black Tongue, like when you arrived, it was like kind of another slap like this. It was like, okay, that's another kind of
another step into the even heavier realm for sure.
Like, and I don't want to change topic because it's super interesting what we're talking about. But I'm like super interested to know how was the approach, like you know, let's bring back heavy but differently. Was that just like how you sounded naturally?
We're talking heyday of Gent, right? Like that's the world we were in when Black Tongue kind of came out, right? And to be fair too, like Beatdown or Down Tempo, however the fuck you want to call it, like whatever you guys put forth. That became a wave as well, right? Like in the deathcore scene specifically, with you know a lot of the gent stuff rising, the style of music that you guys were doing became the new thing, right? For heavier stuff. But yeah, I'm curious to Yen's point, like how you guys went into it with like I guess the context of like what else was going on in the metal world and what you guys were doing.
Okay. Well, just real quick, you know, I heard you saying the first time you heard King Conquer that you laughed. That exact thing happened to me. I was in bed. I just fucking. You remember when there was like blogs that you just downloaded all the music from? Like I just found that, and I downloaded a load of music. Sue me, I don't give a fuck. Download our music.
Hey, that's what it was back in the dude. I mean, we all grew up in that era. Blog spots, that was the thing. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, hell yeah.
LimeWire back then. I mean, come on.
Yeah, deathcore is still sexy. It was great. And I put their what was it? Digitally transmitted disease.
Yeah,
and there's that little bit of like at the beginning.
And then how it comes in. Yeah.
All right then, and it came in, and I was just sat up in bed. And I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
it was great. I loved it.
Crazy, yeah.
But that's what Foehammer did to the whole scene. I distinctively remember, like you're saying, you remember that moment you heard King Conquer for the first time. I remember seeing the music video, well, not the music video, but like just the four blurred out kind of faces with the logo and everything when you guys dropped that first song and just being mind fucking blown, right? And I think that it did that to a lot of people, right? So I don't know, it's kind of a funny parallel, I guess.
That's really cool to hear, because obviously that was like our first, you know, real release, you know, as a band. And obviously we played it for a long time, and then we didn't play it, and we've heard it loads. And, you know, like those types of riffs where, you know, they really did get driven into the ground, you know, with down tempo. So it's really hard for me to like hear it outside, you know, of the lens of that, because I don't listen to it often, honestly.
I mean, the band's changed so much too, right? Since then, obviously.
Yeah. And like when we started playing it again live, or we'd use it as a what do you call it, an encore. And it's just that and it comes in and everyone goes like fucking mental. And I'm always just like, well, all right, you know, people fucking like it. But it was mad, like, because obviously, a huge imposter syndrome all the time. But you know, and obviously, like, even though there was not a huge crossover of fans, or at least vocal ones, you know, I can't deny that, you know, two of the members having just released Infant Annihilator's first album didn't help us. Like, of course it did. You know, like, that helped us, you know, probably get like a foot up more, you know, than most bands start off with. But it was at the point where there was like Facebook groups like UK Deathcore and stuff, and there was a point where, like, there was a meme going around and every post would start with "not Black Tongue, but." So it was like, and like you saw that, it was like, what the fuck? What have we done? Like, this is absolutely great. Like, and I'd like, before that, I'd only been in like a small band with James and Karen. When we was in college, we played like 4 shows, and it was like we were tiny, and we were just like a deathcore band as well. And then I was in like a melodic hardcore band with one of my really good friends, Sean.
Fister.
Yeah,
Mr. Sister Fister.
No, I was never in Mr. Sister Fister. That's a common misconception.
No way.
Yeah, I was never in it. No. I was going to join, and then that kind of whole thing morphed into kind of Black Tongue.
Okay. But
It's like
without
the same people that would have been involved. But no, that band was called As the Blessed Fall.
Okay.
And it is impossible to find any of the music. But yeah, so then we did so Aaron has, he's had a real particular taste, but like me and him love old school deathcore, and he liked the even more extreme parts of it than I did, before I, grew to like those same things. He liked the bits that, like, back then people would be like, what the fuck even is this? Like, things that people would now associate with, down tempo, when the BDs were like, there was so much time between the first chug and the cymbal. He loved that shit. He absolutely rushed. And like, even me back then, I was like, it's a bit much. Like, perfect example.
You hear the windbreakers and you hear the feet on the ground between the hits.
This Love Is Your Lie by Cholera. And that fucking go, fuck, it goes for ages. And it's like, dun, dun. I remember we showed somebody that when we was at like a party, and he was like in a metalcore band or something, and he was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is shit. And we're like, what? Like, what do you mean? It's great. But he loved that shit. And you can actually, you can see a timeline of it. If you can dig up Aaron's SoundCloud, he has some songs that he made, just him fucking about. He does vocals. Obviously, he's not really a vocalist, so there's it's super effect laden and stuff. But you can hear the extremity of, obviously, the word brutal. It has so much baggage with it now, and it's silly to say it. But when you think about brutal and in its real term and its architectural term, it's big, ugly blocks of stuff with no fucking, no detail. Or, nothing unnecessary. And I really fucking understand that when I listen to things, what he used to like, or those songs that he made, or bands like Flesh. Do you ever hear Flesh?
No,
they only ever released one album, and it's got this red cover, and I think it's the members of Messenger of the Covenant.
Okay.
Don't sue me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what they were. And it's just fucking obscene. Do you know what I mean? It's almost too much. And I fucking love that. It's Primitive Man.
Yeah.
It's that's beyond music. That is a landscape and a feeling condensed into, audio art, and it's crushing. And so obviously us coming together was kind of a perfect storm, because we all had these thoughts about music. Whether or not they'd come to the surface yet, they certainly hadn't with me. But they were there, and they were underlying. And obviously Eddie is a fucking savant. You know what I mean? He's just so good at music. He's crazy. Any kind of music.
A lot of people praise him for his drum work, obviously, but that dude's just all around insane, right? From a songwriting perspective, guitar, the drums obviously on another level. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done. I think a lot of it kind of comes down to, maybe again, it's the deathcore moniker that holds him back, or maybe it's, for such a long time it was he's faking it, and all this stuff around his drum parts and stuff. So I don't know if that's kind of tainted what people think of the dude, but my goodness, everything he touches is fucking insane.
Yeah, Eddie and Aaron both. It's Eddie with his guitar work, is unparalleled. It's fantastic to work with. And then Aaron with his drumming, but they're both great, really good producers as well. And I love working with both of them. In the past, I worked a lot with Eddie. I don't really get to see Eddie too much anymore, unfortunately, but I work a lot with Aaron now. And they're both an absolute pleasure to work with, because they both have that musical superpower where they can hear the song fully finished and realized before it's finished at all. So he can, like, it'll be like, why don't you do this pattern or this pattern for your vocals? And I'm like, well, I can't really see how that's gonna, work properly. And then I do it, and then he changes the drums slightly, and then we go forward a bit, and I'm like, this sounds just like a fucking jumble, shit, or at least how I'm, imagining it going back. And then we listen to the whole thing, and it's like, fuck's sake, it's just perfect. You know what I mean? Like, and both of them have that. So they don't get enough. They don't get enough credit for composition, because they, like, I think Eddie said it once. He was like, they were like, is some stuff on the album programmed? He's like, yeah, of course some of the stuff's programmed. Like, so what? Did somebody composed it, and that somebody was fucking me? You know what I mean? Like, and the only stuff that's programmed is the same stuff that every band programs, and it's to save fucking money, because not everybody can get to a fucking not everybody can get to a live drum recording thing. Like, none of us have any money. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no money in death metal. There's no money in deathcore. Like, and that's absolutely it. It's like the composition doesn't get enough credit. But then, like, obviously there was the huge thing about Aaron, not programming all his drums or not being able to drum. It's like, well, I've seen it fucking first hand. I've seen how good of a drummer he is with his own eyes. I've seen it since we were in college together, years before Black Tongue or Infinite Annihilator. And he'd have his electronic kit set up, not make loads of noise in the house. And just seen him like just all over it stuff. And I mean, there's videos on the internet. You can watch him do it. Like, you don't have to believe me.
There's a million videos out there now, but people still, like to move the goalposts.
It's like, that level of, that level of, excellence at drumming takes constant practice to stay on top like that. So yeah, if we went out and played tomorrow, it might be fucking tad rusty. But I've seen him a tad rusty, and he shakes it off real quick. Do you know what I mean? Because we hadn't toured for a long time. Do you know what I mean? And obviously they never actually toured as Infinite Annihilator. But I just want to put that to rest. He's a phenomenal drummer. He's a phenomenal composer, and now now that he's spent a few years doing it, a phenomenal producer as well. And likewise for Eddie, both of them. Anyway, getting back on track. So when we all came together, so I was actually just talking about this with the lads earlier today. So me and Aaron just started writing a couple of stupid heavy tracks. 3 a.m. one time recording it, and it was stupid. And I had loads of like meme lyrics and stuff. And then we showed it to Eddie, and he was like, "There's something here. Do you know what I mean? There's something going on here." Because we were thinking about, because I believe there was actually maybe 3 or 4 songs written for Mr. Sister Fisting. And I was going to join them, and then James was going to join as well, and then we were going to. I could be wrong with that, but that's how I remember it. And then he heard this goofy ass track that we wrote, and he was like, "Whoa, wait a second, there's something going on here."
Fuck like, this other thing. Let's pursue this instead.
Yeah, pump the brakes a second. And I think he got it there because he was a huge, and he still is obviously a huge classical rock fan, or like classical metal, you could even call it, like Zeppelin and stuff like that. So he was always wanting to do, the technical, technicality, the great, there's some really good examples of it in, the MSF album. But then he was like, whoa, and I think it tickled the part of his pickle that likes Alice in Chains. And the old rock bands that are they're obviously grunge adjacent, but I think they were like doom adjacent as well.
Sure.
And like me and Eddie used to joke all the time. We've said it online before and stuff. Is that a hard riff doesn't ever need more than 2 notes. Like if your riff needs more than 2 notes, it's you've overdone it. unless it's like a solo or something, then it isn't hard. Then it's just it's just a riff. But if it's hard, it's 2 notes. And obviously that is a joke. But I love his ability to be able to put together memorable and like powerful as well riffs. That there's not a lot technically going on in them. it's just he's chosen the right notes and he's chosen the right ways to play them. Like a good example, the end of Abuse Ritual, and he just like he lets that riff breathe, and it rings out for the rest of the song, no vocals or anything over it. And it's just a good listen. Do you know what I mean? And it's like there's a feeling to it because he has the ability to do things like that to make simple on the surface, music really have gravitas.
Mm-hmm.
So he took that, and then he knocked out fucking Foehammer, and we were like, all right then, this is fucking mad. And we recorded it, and we're all at the house, and this is, I think, this is before I really took the helm on writing lyrics, just me, like for the deer. But I think we were all just chilling. We're all fucking idiots back then, just getting pissed all the time and that. And we all.
It's kind of a side project at first, right?
Huh?
It was kind of like a side project at first, right? Like it wasn't like really meant to be anything.
Yeah, a lot of magazines have said that like it was like a joke band. It was never a joke band. It was always we all want to play together because we're all friends, and obviously only you two were in Infinite Annihilator, and they never really had any intentions to play live with Infinite Annihilator, and was like, well, we'll do the MSF thing, and then he ended up transforming into the first couple of tracks for BT, and we're like, oh no, like this is it, this is what we want to do. So it definitely was a side thing, but then with the speed that it gained traction, obviously we were absolutely thrilled that had happened, but we didn't expect it at all, I don't think, but we fucking absolutely ran with it. But unfortunately we were kids, and we were some of us were heavy drinkers, and that caused some fucking trouble. We've never, I don't think we've ever upset people properly because we're not nasty people, we're nice people. But we made a fucking ass out of ourselves with some very important people on a few tours, and we learned from that, obviously. But the thing is that because we never expected it and we had no experience with it, we were just so fucking excited. We were so excited. And I think that's what allowed, some of these people to forgive us, because they were just like, obviously we like your music, you wouldn't be on the tour. And you obviously just fucking love metal.
Yeah.
It's just, you need to fucking take about 20% off the top. Yeah. Then it shot up. So when Eddie started putting these songs together with Aaron, and I was like, these are great. Do you know what it felt like? It felt like he was writing music that I already liked, that I'd never heard before. I didn't know that I liked it. Mm-hmm. So I was hearing it because I'd never heard anything like it. Like, and I see a lot of people saying like, oh, fucking Black Tongue, Grandfathers of Down Tempo, whatever. It's like, nah. Mm-hmm. Fucking Wormwood came out 3 years before we were fucking even put pen to paper. The Acacia Strain did it first. Absolutely, they did it first. And before them, even sludge bands were doing it. It's because it's sludge. It's sludge mixed with deathcore. I think the thing that made us stand apart from definitely the bands that came later, but some of the bands that were there at the same time. I'm not saying that we were better or worse, it's what we were different. And I think what people really latched onto us with is obviously Eddie's songwriting, whereas even the songs were, they might have been simple and heavy, but they were good. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't ever just basic, just heaviness. It always had like a nice touch of just something else to it. It always had that nice touch of actual doom, actual rock. And like Eddie has explained to me before, it's like it's hard to write like metalcore, deathcore adjacent music with the doom feel and influence, because it very easily becomes boring shite, as quite a lot of doom is. Yeah. So it's finding that perfect, that
perfect
contrast,
level of just
like how much.
that contrast and stuff that you were kind of talking about or alluding to earlier, right? Like if it's just slow the entire time, you know, there's a lack of dynamics is how you put it, right? Like it's easily a lack of dynamics in a super slow band. And like for me personally, I have a harder time with slower music. I prefer like the faster kind of deathcore and stuff like that. But Black Tongue was able to reel me in because it was still interesting. There was still other stuff going on. The vocal hooks kept you coming back. There was like, you know, there's always, despite it being kind of heavy from front to finish, there was contrast. When the breakdown hit, it was another level of heavy compared to the riff before type thing. So I think you guys always kind of stood out in that sense. And I think that's what a lot of bands failed to do, is to make the heavy bits stand out, right? They were just have all heavy bits, cool, but you know, there's no substance to it.
It gets tiresome, doesn't it? Like one of the things that we used to say is silence when used right is one of the heaviest instruments that you've got.
Sure.
Definitely.
And the best example of it is that absolutely fucking obscene BD in Eclipse.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously it isn't silence, but you know, by silence, I mean the space between notes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it just makes you like, it makes your hair stand on end, you know, because you're like, oh, because it's really difficult to describe what's actually happening, you know, and physiologically when you hear something like that, you know, you get the frisson and everything. And like, it's like
anticipation or like something
anticipation. That does, yeah, that's right. It's like awe almost. You like, you could imagine, like, 'cause I get really vivid images just blasted at me, you know, from the void whenever I experience some music and art and stuff. And it's almost like you're looking up at, you know, some great thing, you know, rising up into the sky. But I think, you know, a much less verbose version of that is what you said. It's anticipation.
Yeah, silence, especially, it's a classic, but you mentioned We Are the End, and we're talking about early Suicide Silence. A lot of the time, what they would do is silence with crazy vocals. Like, that's pretty powerful too. You know, like just hearing, you hear like just a little chug, then you're alone, just like a snare, you know, like there's this
it's just
part.
You and the vocalist.
Yeah. And it's
you guys do that a ton, which is something the bits that I really fuck with have always been those bits, you know, like in L'Appel du Vide and in fucking, you know, Coma and stuff like that. Like those like what you said, the moments where you're alone with the vocalist, like those bits are always so fucking badass. Angry, and then naturally always followed up with something insanely heavy. And the contrast is just, you can't get more contrast than that, right? Like that's why I think buildups always have worked, and we lost that over the years. But deathcore used to be made from like buildups before breakdowns, the snare thing going on, or just like open notes before, and doesn't even necessarily need to be like a silence, but just like some sort of a slowdown before, and like anticipation before a breakdown hits. It's like, it changes everything. That's to me what makes a great breakdown most of the time, right?
Yeah. And
it's everything around the breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. And Black Tongue, I don't know why exactly, but like, I'm a huge fan of like hardcore parts as well, like the hardcore influence. That's why I love Demolisher so much, and Jerome and all that stuff. Like, super huge fan of that. And so when you guys came in, I got kind of that feeling, like I got a hardcore roots but darker feeling, like this angriness of just like, you know, like so personally, that's where my brain went when I first heard it. I felt what I liked before with those bands, but it was like dark, like those hardcore roots, those cool, like
the two steps,
so
and all that
dark
stuff,
and so angry. You know, it was new, is what I'm trying to say.
I think I really those are the bits, you know, that I think we're most proud of. You know, well, me anyway. Obviously, everyone's proud of different parts of it and of the process. But I think what I've seen, you know, over the years, a lot of people really kind of, you know, they can, if not relate, they can attach themselves to the feel of it. And I think it's because the emotion that is, I try to put forward is, I mean, I said before, and I'm going back on myself here about, the theatrics and the goofiness of it. And it is theatrical because obviously, again, without getting into the fucking weeds of it too much, like, I don't know if you've heard Werner Herzog speak at all about his idea of what's called the ecstatic truth.
Okay.
Of what the truths that you find in art that aren't actually truths in the real world, but human beings understand them as even deeper truths despite that. But when I heard him speak about that, it blew my mind because I was like, he put into words what I've been trying to say, but just didn't have the ability to articulate. And I realized I've been trying to do that in music, or trying to, that's the effect I wanted to have on other people. And, there is, there's a lot you can do with, the theatrics of metal, or just, the brutality of metal and hardcore and things like that. But I think how people, connect to the themes and to connect to Black Tongue emotionally, which sounds funny. Like, how do you connect? Like, what the type of music that we play? How do you connect to that emotionally? But people do. They do all the time. I see people, talk about it, talk about the lyrics, how the songs make them feel. Which fucking absolutely warms my heart. But it's because the emotion that I put forward isn't fake. Do you know what I mean? It's not. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's genuine. It's,
I don't know. It's genuine, yeah.
Authentic,
It's not. It's not. Yeah, authentic. That's the word I was looking for. It's not. It isn't put on. It's genuine pain. And you just do it through. You do it through a fantastical lens. With music, but the pain. The pain's real, and if the pain's real, other people hear it. Right down to. You can even get super just, what do you call it? Materialist with it. People just, you can hear it in tones of voice. And, people, like when I hear people say, or when people, post in places like, your music got me through a hard time, or, I listened to this after a friend of mine died, or, I was feeling suicidal and, your music got me through stuff that, like, nothing better, could be said, because the only reason I write anything like that is so obviously the catharsis for myself, but it's so the people can hear it and be like, oh, fuck, I'm not the only one feeling this bad. Like, I'm not the only one, I'm not alone in fucking this misery. And, you can do something with it.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of why, as much as there's, arguments online, whatever, but like the common thing we have, like if at some point in your life you're loving that extreme music, there's some reasons, right? Like we all pretty much went through stuff.
I think we're all kind of fucked up for it. Yeah.
I mean, for what it's worth, I really think we do, and it's so helpful to not feel alone in something like that and feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like these things matter. And like, I'm like, it reassures you that like, okay, we live in a fucked up world. I'm not the only one thinking that it's messed up, and hearing, because you made a good point. I think you can be good when you do fictional stuff. Some people are doing it very well. But there's a realness to when the person is authentic and real in there's an extra like layer of angriness and scariness that you cannot really fake. It's not really possible to fake it unless you feel it inside. And I feel like that energy is very hard to describe, but it's something that when you hear it, it kind of like, it just knocks you out. You're just like, what is happening? So it might be like a big part of why Black Tongue was so like, everybody felt like it's heavier, it's different. It's because like the realness behind it was like very clear, probably from
the
all
emotional weight adds to the heaviness.
So
but that's also one of the reasons why why I kept my vocals the way I did for a long time. And because I was like, I can go heavier, I can sound more monstrous, but I didn't want to. You know what I mean? I wanted to sound heavy, you know, because when people are like, oh, you're fucking one of the heaviest bands in the world, we're not. We never have been. But, you know, for a lot of people, we were. So you want, you know, I want it to be heavy, obviously. There's even just some of like the fucking machismo of it all. You're like, you know, you want to be the fucking heaviest one. But I kept them specific, like, because people always say your enunciation is really good. And, you know, that's on purpose because I want the words to be understood, you know, to an extent. So people can, you know, like obviously you can relate to it animalistically, you know, on a base level just through, you know, the sound, you know, you can hear the emotion in the voice. But, you know, I do put a lot of time into the lyrics. Like I've seen people say like, oh, why, like when people are discussing the lyrics to Nadir on, you know, YouTube comments or whatever. And you know you'll get one bozo. Oh, I can't begrudge them for it, really. You know, like if you're not interested in the lyrics, you're not interested. But they're like, oh, why does anybody give a shit about the lyrics? Why does anybody listen to this music for the lyrics? It's like, well, it was just because it's another element. You know what I mean? Like the human element of it. Yeah, and it doesn't. You know, you don't have to have good lyrics, especially. It's like I see this a lot. Do you know what? I see it a lot in hip hop, and I see it a lot in. Because I'm a huge hip hop head as well. I see it a lot in metal. Do you find that you think both, you know, hip hop and metal, the songs are a lot goofier and less good when you see a lyric video from them? Because as soon as you can see what they're actually saying, you're like, come on. But it's not that makes the song shit. It's that you're peeking under the curtains of something that maybe you weren't supposed to peek at. Like, especially in hip hop, with like, a lot of it, especially like conscious hip hop and stuff, like this doesn't really apply to that. But you're using the voice as a percussive instrument, you know, partially with that. So not everything has to be fucking, you know, not everything has to be Shakespearean levels of wordplay, even though plenty of people do and they do it well. You can appreciate it for the rhythm. And I think that's what hip hop and metal share, is that it's not really about the words, it's about how you do them.
Yeah.
But that isn't to say that the lyrics should be bad. Do you know what I mean? You know, I can take pride in them, but I don't fucking care if anybody reads them or not, because, you know, I get to perform it. But it's nice that people read it and that they, you know, that they related to it, especially with Nadir. And I think that really, you know, once you know the lyrics and you can pair that up with the feel you get from it, that adds another layer that's like, it's quite intangible. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to quantify it, but, you know, that's the beauty of art and consciousness, isn't it? There's plenty of unquantifiable things that are floating around. You might as well get as many as you can.
It's pretty funny though, when I remember sometimes, and it doesn't help because like I'm French Canadian, so like my English it's still not super good, but like it was way worse back then. So like sometimes I would be convinced for years, for months, whatever, of a certain lyric part that I liked. And then I would read it and I would be like, that's not at all what I thought it was saying. Yeah. But
I connected so deeply to these words. No.
But I remember when I put up the Suicide Science video all together, there was an interview of Mitch, and he was saying, well, he said that multiple times, but he said like, it doesn't matter as much as like, you can make it your own. If the emotion, if it connects with you and you can make it your own. He said like, I'm writing lyrics that I connect to, but if somebody else get another meaning from it and he's connecting, it's an amazing thing as well. So there's more, and I fully agree with that. I think sometimes it happened to me that I was convinced a song was about a certain thing, and after realizing, I was like, oh no, it was talking about that. But still, I got a real emotion. I connected to it. It was fine.
A lot of bands try to not talk. Yeah, a lot of bands try not to talk about, like some vocalists will purposefully not talk about what the songs mean to them, because they don't want to kind of tarnish what someone else might have with it. And
like it's for you and only you.
Yeah. So there's like a part of me, I think early on, that was like, that's kind of weird. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, nah, like I kind of get it. Like you don't want to take any of that away. Like just live it how you live it. And it doesn't really matter what the original intent or thought behind it was. Like everyone's living their own thing. Right. And I think that's the beauty of most art, like even outside of music, you know?
Yeah.
The beauty of it, isn't it?
Sorry. But what I miss is when we had physical copies. I know there is still people singing, but back then it was kind of like you would be welcome in their world type thing. Like you would open the thing, you would get like the lyrics, the artwork, like extra artwork, like the world of things. So discovering the lyrics for me was like, it was a different experience also back then, as opposed to like a lyric video and just like a concept. Back then it was just like, you didn't know, like you were discovering this, like just like, oh, I remember like, cause I bought like a super old Despise Icon CD back then. I didn't even know what Despise Icon, I thought it looked cool. I'm like, what's that? And quite cool lyrics, you know, so I was reading at the same time. So I feel they're
Quebecois as well, aren't they?
Yeah. They're from here. We cannot shut up about it. We keep talking about the fact that we're from the same place, and they're awesome.
I fucking love Despise Icon, man. But yeah, continue.
they're legendary for sure. So I feel like times have changed a little bit on that as well. And also back then, like nowadays, without trying to be mean, like there's a new deathcore song every 5 seconds online with a new lyric video and similar logos and stuff like that. So I feel like now there's maybe more, as you said, like sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, you see the lyrics, it's fine. But I feel like for a while it was more of a mystery thing. Like, oh my God.
The lyric video era, the peak Scott Rudd era, no shade to the guy, he does amazing work, but I hated it so much because so many bands within deathcore, and I'm sorry everyone, wrote dog shit lyrics, and I would have rather not have a lyric video to show me the words. I was like, it scrapped so many songs for me. I was like, no, like this is good until I fucking knew what the lyrics were. There is something to be said about like bad lyric, like it can kind of go both ways, right? Like I've you know, some bad lyrics, like sure, if you really can't fucking understand them because they regurgitate their words, like maybe you can kind of get past it and not think about it anymore. But sometimes just like, oh man, this is cheesy as hell, or this is just, I don't know, something for everyone. But I hated that era for sure. Yeah.
If you didn't know what the lyrics were, what a problem.
Yeah, exactly. That was my whole point. I was like, no, don't give it to me. I'm good.
I'm a big fan, honestly, still today, not kidding. I'm a big fan of just an artwork, the song. Like put the cover of your thing and I'm playing the song on YouTube just like that. Either that or like, you know, full on video. If you make a video, obviously I'm going to be like, that's cool. But I'm a huge fan of just like put the song, your artwork. I'm okay with that. You know, I'm just going to blast it.
That's how you listen to it anyways, right? In the car, or even if you have the CD or like any of these things, right? Exactly. Like you don't have the additional media. It's just like the artwork and the song. Like
I let the song speak to, like, that's how personally I see it. Again, videos are cool. Don't get me wrong. But to me, just dropping your artwork, your thing, let the song do the rest. You know, it's going to resonate. So,
yeah, I think, if you're going to do a video, it needs to be, because every band in the world's guilty of it, including us. Absolutely. Like, if it's just you playing, it's like, it's just marketing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, marketing's the most irritating part of music, and the bit that you have to do. And it's shit, you know, because it's like it's the opposite of art, and it's involved with all the people that are like anti-art, non-human fucking homunculi. You got to do it. But like, if you're gonna do it, do something fucking funny. just do something fucking funny. Give people a reason for watching it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if it's just you playing, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Same. We've done it.
Well, you're gonna watch it probably. Like, you're gonna watch it once type thing. You know, you're going to play it. It was cool, you know, because let's be real. I was also a big fan of like new metal back then, you know, like Linkin Park, all those clips. It was, you know, a camera like this, and they would be, you know, like playing Papa Roach, all that stuff. It was fine. But it's just like a good example. When I did the Chelsea Grin video, I was laughing. They did like a D&D video. It's just them playing Dungeon Dragon. I loved it because I was like, that's ridiculous. You would see like the dice, and they were all like in costume. Like,
you're speaking Alex's language right there, and I don't know if that's something you're aware of.
Oh, dude, like, I mean, yesterday night I was playing Skyrim on my Xbox 360. I'm like a huge like medieval, like Lord of the Ring, whatever, all those things. D&D, magic cards, anything basically nerdy you can name. I'm liking. I just posted a Star Wars cosplay video. Like I'm really about these things. But I love seeing this, and that's why when I see it, I know it's different. But Infinite later, I was like, what is happening here? And I feel like if you make a video, just go for it. Like show at least maybe personality, or just laugh, or do something. It's a reason to be like, hey, had you seen this video? Because no one's going to be like, hey, have you seen this new video of them playing the new song? They're just going to say they have a new song, right? So I feel like marketing
you're
wise.
right. But it's like, if you show them it for the song, then they'll listen to it once, and then they'll, listen to it on just Spotify or whatever after that.
Yep.
But personality, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I have just seen in the chat, sorry to pull away from this, somebody...
It's fine.
If they'd be curious to hear Alex's techniques for recording vocals.
Curious.
I'm wanted to talk about this for a long time. So, like, despite me saying, that like the vocals, I tried to keep them at least enunciated. You'll probably notice that they like change a fair bit from album to album. Mm-hmm. And with the new music that I'm going to be, releasing very soon, this even more so, probably more of an extreme change than in Black Tongue as well. Because I'm not reaching for the same thing as Black Tongue anymore. Like people be like, oh, why is he changed so much? Or like, why weren't you doing these, disgusting sounding bullshit vocals in Black Tongue? Well, it's like, well, because then it wasn't right for it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't have to be at maximum power all the time.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm arguing with a bet that I've just made up in my head. But so the reason why they change is because every time we record together, and we're not really, too pressed for time. The only time we've been pressed for time was Nadir, and that was good though. That was like volcanic pressure creating a diamond. It was great. But usually we have time, so we can take our time with the vocals and stuff. And because Aaron and Eddie are really they can hear it already. They don't mind pushing me. They'll push me to get certain sounds and things. And I don't think there's ever been a time, like a recording session, maybe not every individual one, but like periods of recording where I'll do something and Aaron already will go, ooh, wait a second, what was that? And they get me to repeat it. And it's because every time we record, I find something new that I can do. And we give it a funny name so I can always remember what it is. And then we put it in this like black book, and they've all got real funny names. And so like, it's like, oh, cool. That's just another fucking, string to the bow. We can add new stuff to that. It's great. I also thought about layering. It's not that I've never layered. But when I layer, I like to make it obvious that it's a layer.
Yeah, exactly.
So
two different tones. So
like,
very
yeah. It's like, so this is a layer, or it's like, it's a low and a high, and it sounds great, because I don't like the idea of, me not being able to make the same sound live, so what people hear on the album generally is what I'm doing, is what I can do. And I'm like, I saw you talking to Matey Boy from Aegeon. He was saying about him being very loud.
Yeah.
For most of my career as a vocalist, I've been incredibly loud. Because I never did any technique, like there was no technique. Obviously I was doing a technique, but I never sought one out. I didn't know the name.
It wasn't conscious. You were just doing your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very loud, and and I fucking hurt myself doing it.
As did James, right?
Yeah. And I'd 3 days into every tour, I won't be able to speak. And I'd be like getting up to the show coming up, and like, fuck's sake. And I'd always, pull it out because, and this is before I really understood much about vocal cords and stuff like that. I didn't realize that the vocal cords I was using for doing vocals were different to the ones that I speak with. So I'd always be like, ooh, like pale clutching, like I'm going to blow it. I'm not going to be able to do any vocals. And obviously there's been times where they've not sounded great. I'd hate myself, and it was dumb. And it's because I'd always be like, right, I must get lower and more evil sounding, by adding more power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fucking wrong. It's just straight up wrong.
Kind of the opposite, really. Yeah.
Yeah, for real. And this is really embarrassing. I didn't really find that out until last year.
Hey, I mean, you made it work for what it's worth, right? Like,
like what you just said, honestly, I think it's this year that I was like, oh my God, like trying to push or overdone, it would be worse. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And when I would focus and do it differently, oh, that sounds way better actually. So yeah, it's
there's something to there's something primal to just trying to belt it though, right? Like I think some of that particular style of vocal you're talking about, James, right? And people like we had Jamie from I Declare a War on this week, right?
Oh my God.
And like same kind of thing. Like it's just like belting, right? It's kind of a techniqueless type of primal like yelp, and that's kind of what people assume makes the sound, right? Because that's really what it sounds like ultimately, right? Like and it sounds different than, and again, no shade to anyone doing the newer style of deathcore and people that are like super on it with technique and stuff like that. But I think there is something to that kind of like just that primal yell into a microphone that it's kind of hard to capture otherwise, right?
Well, it almost goes like using less power kind of almost goes against your intuitive, kind of feeling about how it would go, like kind of as you were saying. And you're like, how can I fucking sound metal if I'm not making loads of noise? And then when you do, experiments to try and do it, because the first few times you do it, it sounds like shit. And you're like, see, that's all the evidence I needed. But as you were saying, and about you concentrate. And then you're like, I get it now. It's the technique. You do have to concentrate on what it is you're doing. And a lot of, one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people is, yes, you might have learned like a throat technique, like maybe you do false chord or whatever fry, and they're like, oh, how do I get them to sound better? And they'll send me a clip, and I'm like, yeah, I can hear that the bass lines there. What else I'm hearing is that there's you could say personality. I don't think the nuance of that's quite correct. I think inflection. Voice, yeah. And obviously having your own voice, it's like a lot of people, tunnel throat it. It's like, yeah, cool. Like it sounds mint. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds fucking gross and like super evil. But I don't hear a lot of people sounding their own. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a hard thing to add inflection to. But just getting back to like regular vocals and like, well, how do I add inflection? And it's like, well, when you speak, with a high level of emotion, never mind what that emotion is, what is your face doing? You become expressive. It's like, well, imagine you were a cartoon. Imagine you were a Disney cartoon. And this is where, like, I guess, kind of like lyrical themes come into it. Because if you're saying something that you're passionate about, you can make your face match that level of passion. And when you make it a cartoonish kind of exaggeration of that sound, therein lies the inflection, because your mouth is making the shape of it that the human ear and brain knows what that is. It knows, because, like, what is the human brain good at? Listening to each other speak and fucking recognizing faces, and it does that without you having to think about it. So it's about like tapping into the base level human communication thing, and you can really play around with it then. I know Mark from Cardbox, he does some really great videos on it, and it's about like really concentrating on the shape of your mouth, and like visualizing, where the air's like coming up through and stuff. And I think like the best example of that was I was listening to Primitive Man. I was driving fucking My Will, which is just an absolutely fucking devastating song. And obviously that's not really, core adjacent at all. I know Ethan, I think his name is, he's in some really great bands, and obviously he like, he's familiar with hardcore and stuff. He's like an absolute legend in the scene. But, I was like, he was doing these like highs, and I was like, what are these? What's going on here? Because they sound horrible. They were like fucking like acidic and like vicious sounding. I was like, that sounds a little bit tunnel throaty. And this is back before I'd even started, maybe experimenting with tunnel throat or whatever. But I know what shapes, were supposed to be being made. And I was like, that sounds like he's doing a high, but with his tongue. Like that's, and once you start experimenting with it, you can hear the shapes people are making. And the next time we say record, I think it's when it's one of the tracks on that Shat Out EP that I sent to you, that Coke Sick in that. You hear me do it on there, and I'm channeling fucking Matey Boy from Primitive Man on that. And I tried it, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the shape. So just experimenting with everything around the technique is how you do it. That's how you step up and make yourself sound not better than others, but like different. You become unique, and that's how you do it. It's everything. Because it's not even difficult. It's things that you're doing anyway in your everyday communication, and you just exaggerate them, and you can have so much fucking fun with it. Like finding all these bits, or like just try and replicate somebody that you admire, but like really replicate the sound. But once you've really got an idea of mouth shapes, you've been playing around with mouth shapes for quite a bit, and you found a lot of new things that you didn't realize you could do. And when you start doing that, you get a better idea of, what's going on in the mouth and the throat. And like the perfect example for me is I absolutely idolized fucking Zach from Alicia. I love Alicia. And those fucking vocals. Me and Aaron fucking rush. We absolutely love those vocals. And I never really thought about it too much until like recently. I think because I never really attributed many deathcore vocalists to like my style, but him and Johnny Davey, I think definitely. Sure. And there was like this bits where like we've been recording recently, and Aaron's been like, do the fucking Alicia thing. And I'm like, so I do it. And he's like, and it sounds, my beer. Yeah, and it sounds good. It sounds passable. If we recorded that and somebody heard it, they'd be like, yeah, cool. That's good. That's heavy. And he's always like, no. He's like, there's more. I know there's more. And he pushes me to do it. And then we started combining techniques as well. What you can do. And there's been so many times. There was one just the other week. Where he's like, right, do this, but why don't you just like mix a little bit of this technique into it? So there's one technique that's called the deep bell, and that's like chins out like this, throats like proper like this, and it's like big bellowy echoing. It's like it's really low vibrations, and it's like heavy and low like that, but there's no pronunciation really, and you can't do it for very long because your airway's just open. So the air comes out. So like, what's a good one on the deer? Ultimate a Cat, where where it has that break in the middle where it gets like real doomy after that like pause. Where I say chill wind howls. It's like there's like a yelly bit in there. It's like chill wind, and that's the deep bell. That's the best example of it. And he was like, well, why don't you combine that with the Alicia thing? So I'm like, before we start recording, I'm like, doing it with the shapes and stuff. And then I realized that if I like put my neck out like this and put my mouth in the right shape, I can just pitch shift my voice without a pitch shifter. And he was like, what the fuck is that? And he was like, put some fucking vocals through that. I was like, yeah. All right then. It was like adding a pitch shifter, just with nothing. It was great. And then like, so that gets added to like different stuff. And then he was like, right, do because we've been trying to do kind of like more of these more like old school death metal sounding people that are like coming out recently for some of the things that we've been writing. And so he was like, all right, do that fucking, he's like, do that like real rattly one, but just do it real lightly, but do it through that like side thing that you do. And I was like, that's not gonna fucking work. Like Like, I can feel that ain't going to work. And I did it, and it fucking worked. And we're like, right,
it's crazy that he has, it's crazy that he has the vision though, right? Without, you know, because it's such a thing that it's kind of something that you feel, right? Like when you're toying around with techniques and stuff like that, it's very kind of like, I don't know, you don't see yourself doing it. So it's kind of just like, you can picture what certain things are going to do, but it's special for someone who isn't doing the vocals to be able to picture it as well and picture different things and envision how that would sound like.
It's even difficult to verbalize as a vocalist.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can't see it. So you're just going basically on feel. And yeah, he's you're right. He's just good, and he knows which ones work together, which is why I fucking love working with him. But yeah, I hope that answered people's queries about it. Basically, never stop fucking changing. Don't layer your vocals. Don't push really hard until you hate yourself. There you go. Yeah, pushing hard isn't always making it heavier. It's just leading you to having throat cancer.
I mean, a lot of people in chat are kind of what you're alluding to a few different things that me and you have talked about behind the scenes about, you know, you're talking about recording new music. I don't know, people have been clamoring about, you know, Black Tongue and all this stuff. Do you mind sharing some of the stuff you're working on right now with the...
Yeah, let's get into that. So to answer the big question straight off the bat, there is not a Black Tongue album in the works at the minute, unfortunately. But as we've said, like numerous times and put in posts and things like that, and we do absolutely mean it, Black Tongue will never die. Strange eons, even death may die type shit. Black Tongue's here to stay. And the reason people, you know, they're like, oh shit, it's been 6 years, like where have you gone stuff? It's Black Tongue was never a business for us. And I know that sounds silly, but bands have to be a business. Like you have, if you're more than just playing local shows, you know, as soon as you start touring, you have to be a business. And obviously we got signed, and that was a fucking shit show. And, you know, made us pack it in for a little bit. And so when we tried that out, and it didn't work,
a lot of stuff happened with the band, period, right? Like throughout the band's career, from tours being canceled to then, you know, stuff with COVID and all that. You know, a big journey for Black Tongue over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're like, right, we're not treating this as a business. We're not playing the game. You know, we're not doing the rat race. We're just going to do it as and when, you know, when it feels right to us. And I like that. But obviously I think I like touring the most out of everybody in the band. I know some of the members don't like it at all. I love it. It absolutely gives me fucking life. You know, performing is, you know, that's magic for me. That's ritual magic. I don't mean that in a silly way. I mean that like deadly seriously. But yeah, we couldn't. So that's why we haven't toured as much as you might think. And it doesn't help that we can't really tour America, which is where our biggest fan base is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we will, because this is what, like a little peek behind the curtain and why this is so difficult is to get even considered for a tour, you need to have the tour booked, which means when they deny your fucking visas, not only do you then lose loads of money for everything that you've booked, if you can't get a refund on it, which for a lot of stuff you can, flights and stuff, you also lose a tour and nobody knows all of this background stuff. So you can only do that a couple of times, like we've tried to, and get denied and lose £6,000 each time, which is no small amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, you lose this respect and trust to the fans. So if you try to keep doing it, people aren't even going to buy the tickets because they're like, oh, well, no, every time they come, they just fucking sack it off, even though we hadn't sacked it off.
Mm-hmm.
And that eventually becomes too much and you just can't do it anymore. So very likely we'll never be back, and it fucking sucks because it was absolutely amazing. So that in combination with later, because obviously that was quite early on, and that's been fucking plaguing us since 2015.
Right, it's almost been 10 years.
Yeah. And then obviously there was the accident in 2015, which interrupted a pretty big tour. Which people are like, oh, you missed the European tour got fucked because of it. But then we were meant to be going straight from that to America. Well, we'd have just got stopped at the fucking border and not let in. So that that would have never happened regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then obviously we did bits here and there. I mean, 2016 was great. 17 was good. 18 we did Nadia. Kind of made a bit of a comeback, and it was good. 2019 was great. We did some really good tours. We did the Baltic states and Russia again. And we did Europe, like a summer Europe tour, and it was just fucking fantastic. I had such a great time. And then we did Canada at the end of the year, which was fantastic. And then after that, straight into fucking COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And that was rough. It was rough for fucking everybody on the planet. I know it was. But it was especially rough for, bands because it came in tandem with Brexit, which for a long time, and I don't even know if it's really been resolved, pretty much wrote off touring for small UK bands to get to Europe.
Yeah.
Which was one of the big, that was obviously with us being an island, getting onto the continent is like, that's your first step as a band. Do you know what I mean? That gets you known in Europe. And once you start doing it in Europe, you get a name for yourself and then you can go further afield. Well, that looked like it was off the table for everybody because obviously it's expensive going to like America or Australia or whatever because you have to, to get the visa and stuff. It was looking like you'd have to get a visa for every European country that you were going to.
Yeah.
Whereas a year previously, a person from the UK could have got on the Eurotunnel, landed in Calais, and then got on a train and gone through every fucking country in Europe without once getting their passport out.
Yeah.
And that was completely fucking ruined by the Tories, who I will never forgive. But that's the thing. Obviously that caused me a lot of fucking stress. It caused the band a lot of stress because we're like, right, well, what do we do? Do you know what I mean? We too many options are being taken off the board now. And we're all getting older, and we're like, well, have we fucked it? Or is have the stars aligned that this ain't going to work for us? I mean, and obviously, as we said, we went treating it as a business. It's not like we lost out like that, but it made people, want to invest less in it, personally.
Yeah.
So people moved on with their lives, and rightly so as well, because we didn't know what we were going to do. And that's really one of the reasons why, they're in a new album, or why there's not been anything for a while, because, I'm sure a lot of people can agree, it feels like the last 3 years just went by like that. They just didn't exist,
Dude.
It's like I woke up in my fucking mid-30s, like, whoa.
Yep.
It's very weird. Like when I don't know if you saw that, I saw a reel, and it's just someone who said, by the way, in 6 months, it's going to be 5 years since 2020. And I was like, it's like, I never saw 1 second till then. Like every month is just passing by, and I'm like, oh my God, we're in the middle of the summer. Like, what the hell is happening? So I feel you.
I thought it was just like that we were getting older, and people say, oh, fucking time's exponential. I don't fucking believe that shit. But it went.
No, there's something weird going on. Definitely. That definitely.
Because people younger than us, are feeling that as well.
Yep.
And it just feels like my life was blipped by, and it hasn't really. I had a really good job that I liked, during that time, which I had to leave when I started getting treatment for alcoholism, because it was GM of a cocktail bar. So I can't really do that as an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I've done, so I did all that. That was great. I was working with my best friend who was the overall GM, and he was fantastic, and we pulled that from the ground up and turned it into a completely new place. The people were coming from out of town to get our cocktails and stuff, which was dope. But yeah, I had to leave. I'm fucking going off on one. Oh well.
Oh, you're good, dude.
Left to get treatment. I got my, and it was really difficult because I don't have any money. And it cost me like 30 grand to go to rehab for free. So you go to one of these services, they'll send you there, but you have to go through a lot of stuff. And that stuff was about 6+ months of going to groups and doing all the psychological stuff beforehand. And they don't get you to stop drinking. Then they're like, we want you to level out your drinking. We want you to
taper it off, type of thing.
Yeah, it's like as long as you're drinking the same amount, that's what we want. Even if that's a fucking full bottle. Even if that's a full bottle of vodka a day, as long as it's the same amount. So doing that for a while, it was really pretty hard to get my fucking head around. It was a really fucking awful period of my life, can't lie. You don't know what addiction's like until you're addicted, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with something like alcohol, because in your head you're like, that's just that's just part of society, it's not like I'm doing heroin.
No, you buy it at the grocery store. Yeah.
It's everywhere. Exactly. It's everywhere, and everywhere you go to, right? There's even in your own family, like you go somewhere in your family, you're trying to stop drinking, like people, hey, drink that. It's kind of a social, just everybody does it type thing. And when you say like, hey, I'm going to stop drinking, usually because if you say I'm going to stop heroin, everybody's going to be like, yeah, stop that. If you say I'm going to stop alcohol, it feels like so many people are just like, why? I mean, like, come on, like it's
that's abnormal to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to justify yourself of just like, it was a problem. I don't want to, like I'm at this point where I don't really, to be honest, I don't really drink. I don't see the interest. So like, and I have to explain every time like, oh, you're the, and why? Yeah, but it does it kind of an argument like what? So I feel like this makes it kind of like way more difficult in a way because it's so present and accepted everywhere that you have to just like deal with that all the time. And it adds an extra layer of difficulty, I think.
For sure. And they made that very clear. Like they were like, this is one of the hardest drugs to get off. Like, unfortunately. And it was for that exact reason what you said. But yeah, it went like, obviously I knew I drank too much. Like I've always drank too much. Like I know now it's because I'm fucking real mentally ill and did not have the correct medication for it when I was a kid. But like beyond that, I always drank too much, and I couldn't see that what I was doing was abnormal. Do you know what I mean? Like we were just saying then, like it's abnormal to not drink around people who, normal people that aren't like this. Because the amount that I was drinking was way too much, and it was way too fast. That was the thing. Like so people would always say. It just like I'd get fucking blackout battered, and like my best friend, he said to me quite recently, he was like, when right towards the end of me, being fucking right in the thick of it, he was like, you are my favorite person in the world when you were sober, and you were my least favorite person when you were pissed. Like that really got to me.
That says a lot.
Because I like to think that I'm a nice person, that I'm quite pleasant to be around, and that I like to listen to people. You seem all right
outside looking in, yeah.
And then I'd get off my nut, and just it's not that I was violent. Do you know what I mean? I've never been in a fight in my life. I've never hit anybody, but I was like a fucking weird, just nasty dickhead, and like it was like Jacqueline Hyde. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I can't just say, oh, it was the alcohol. No, because it was me that drank it. And it's me that knew that's what I'd get like and did it anyway. So it's absolutely my fault. But, So I found out only last year, after the idea of it never having entered my head even once, mainly because I'm from a time where people didn't have this, you didn't talk about it because it just wasn't real. With ADHD, and quite possibly autism as well. There's a huge overlap of symptoms and stuff. Yeah. I'd never even thought about it until one of my mates and my fiance, she was like, you exhibit quite a lot of the bits. I was like, I'm all right, cool. And my mate, in fact, it was Aaron. He was like, I've been doing it for a while, taking the medication. He was like, and I'm, doing real good. He's a completely different person to who he was when we started Black Tongue, completely different, and for the better as well. And he was like, just go on. I was like, at the time I had a bit of money saved up, and I was like, all right, I'll, this might be for the best. And it was like, when you start taking the medication, it's like your brain puts glasses on for the first time.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like,
that's when you realize, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
So
this is what normal is supposed to be like. Ah.
Yeah, exactly.
Normal
so I got,
is,
I got the quite lengthy and expensive process of, getting the diagnosis, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I'd never even thought of this. It's like, it's not like I'd self-diagnosed or anything. I just never thought about it.
Yeah.
And without getting too much into that, like one of the things about people that have that is substance abuse, and it's because of your brain constantly trying to find the dopamine that it isn't producing itself like a normal person does. So, I mean, it was good in that, it helped explain a lot of things about why I'm the way that I am. But again, it's not an excuse that you can use.
No, for sure.
To just keep doing dumb shit.
Yeah.
That's
when the real work starts, really, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, right, you're going to have to fucking do something about this, because you're either going to lose everybody, you're going to die, or you're going to kill somebody else, and nobody else deserves to die because of your fucking alcohol addiction. So I did this. Yeah, and I went, and it was long. I was drinking, and it was like, you really got to see how bad it was. It was like, when you look, I couldn't go past booze without drinking it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or like if I was in the store, I couldn't not get it, and I was hiding it. Do you know what I mean? Like you hear that quite often. We'll hide it because we're so ashamed of it. Mm-hmm. And
you're functional too, so people don't even notice, even when you are drunk, type of thing.
Exactly.
Or at least you think so.
My parents were like pulling bottles of vodka out for months after I got sober. In places that I'd hidden them, and I was drinking so much. I was like. Just grabbing, but like the big fucking handles and chugging it so much until my body started rejecting it. And I was like, right, cool. You can just go about your day now. And the scary thing about it is it's never like you're fighting against it and there's this big horrible like monster that's like, no, you're going to do this. I'm going to make you do it. And it's like twisting your arms to do it and stuff. You want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard to stop, because it's not anything you're fighting against, it's you. And you're like, well, I don't want to not do it, so I'm just going to do it. But then you realize that isn't you. That is the receptors that the alcohol has created. And like now, it's been 7 months now, and I'm out and I walk past.
Congratulations, by the way. I just wanted to say. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh,
yeah,
I know. It's just the first steps, right? But it is a big undertaking, right?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. But yeah, like I walk past booze now in like the shop or whatever, and it's not a huge thing, but you get a little pang, like a little pang of fear. Because like when I first came out, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna drink. It's all been a waste. But it wasn't. What I thought was I was experiencing was the desire to drink, but I wasn't. I was experiencing the fear of wanting to drink. And once I got my head around that, it got better. Like the first 2 months out of it were fucking horrible. It was like crippling anxiety. So I developed like really severe anxiety disorder when I was at university, and for people that don't know, like that ain't just like being anxious. That is like the baseline of your mind is terror. It's constant terror. I've been on medication for that for 12 years. And if I don't take it for 3 days, because the problem is that fear warps reality is something I've noticed, is that it'll start to trick you into believing things that aren't real. It's fucked anyway. Mm-hmm. But I got past that. It was sick, because even then my brain was like, you know what, I'd solve this if you got battered. And I just had to be like, what the fuck would that solve? Yeah. Like, and as soon as I got, because I remember one of the things that I think back to all the time thankfully, I was journaling whilst I was there, and that was the best thing I could have done, because it's like, once you start writing, you see
you can go back to it, you see the truth.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Like you externalize it, and it was, I'm honestly, it was the best thing I could have done. And one of the things I think about in there is, because there's loads of things that are just little bits, that I wrote down, just little bits. This was one of them. And it was, what is that buzz in your brain worth? Is it worth everything that it'll take from you? Then is it worth everything it'll take from those that you love? And I just think about that every time, and it still sends like a chill down my spine. Once I got my head around that, like I walk past these booths now, and this tiny little just like beep of fear, and it's like, there's nothing to be scared of. It's just strange that there was once a point where I would not have been able to stop myself from reaching out and taking it, and that isn't there anymore. Because internally, I don't feel different. Do you know what I mean? I feel like the exact same person, but this compulsion isn't there anymore. And that's, it's fantastic, obviously, that I don't have that, but it's scary that exists. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Or the thought that maybe you could go back to that or anything, I get
that. Obviously,
the bargaining.
They say that it's a regressive illness, not regressive. People tend to go back to it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, so it is scary.
I don't want to ask something to let me know if it's too personal, but I'm just curious about something. Usually when you do a big change like that, you also see kind of a big change in your, people around you, right? Like your circle change a little bit. Did you see like a big change like that, or you already kind of had a small circle, just stay like that?
I already had a small circle. When I moved, when I started my treatment, I'd been living in York, the original York, for 6 years at that point, and I had to. When I left my job, I had to come home. I'm still home at the minute. I live with my parents, just because I had to put everything into getting sober, which is fine. I'm not ashamed of it. Like I had to do. I'd be dead otherwise.
You should be proud of doing that. Actually, if I'm honest,
a lot of people wouldn't do it. Right? Wouldn't take that sacrifice. Right?
Yeah. It's done it again. So what was the original question? Sorry.
About your circle, people around you, if you saw like a big change.
That was it. Yeah. Because I had to come back, I obviously wasn't in like the hospitality circle anymore. I was, when I first moved to York, that was, I still look at those times really fondly, because it's a high intensity job. We work at like a Michelin star restaurant. So the pressure's on all the time. But everybody there was friends. It was a huge group of friends. And then everybody, all the other bars of the restaurants is friends. So it was great. And when everyone's drinking, you don't really realize how much you're drinking. You know what I mean? And that, that dispersed over years until, it was just loads of people moved to Australia, as, people like to do these days, or, down to London and stuff, until there wasn't really that much, much of a group left. But I was still drinking at that level. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when I came back, it's all like, obviously I see the guys from Black Tongue and, my friends that, I've been friends with since we were in school, and some of those pie charts have crossed each other, which is nice. So my circle was always small, and that hasn't changed much, because they've all been like super supportive, which has been really, really good.
That's awesome to hear, because sometimes, for certain people, it's quite the opposite, right? Like they go and then they realize, oh my God, like most people around, it was maybe not what they think. So it really meant that you had already like your circle. It was the right circle. It was everything. You had good people around. It was just you dealing with other stuff and you needed to fix it. So it's cool to hear, basically, because and not to make you feel bad or anything, but like it's also difficult for people around when you go through stuff like that. You need to deal with it. Like they need to, to show support. So you don't always know what to say, you don't always know how to be there. So it's cool to hear that you have amazing people around, who supported through all that.
I wouldn't have got very far without my family and friends. That's for sure. Like, I like telling people my success story, especially if they're struggling. But I also understand that like most people that are in this boat don't have the things that I'm so lucky to have. But, you know, I can't help that. So I just have to be as thankful as possible, you know, for those things. But yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, for what it's worth, dude, like I meant it when I said like you should be proud. Like when I hear that, like there's never in my life there's never been any judgment, quite the opposite. It's always like, wow, like when somebody would because I have people around who stop doing different things, and my reaction was always the same, like, oh my god, like it takes courage, it's difficult, you have to face so many things, like it's not like just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop. It involves like your whole life changing, and you a lot of people like you did that and you succeeded, and you're here to talk about it. So just that, like that should be like I would be extremely proud of that all the time. Like it's something.
Thank you,
and thank you, by the way, for. And I know Dom is probably this close to say thanks as well, but like we really appreciate you sharing that, because like
no problem.
As much as we love talking about deathcore, we both share the same thing as like that's the biggest gift that you could ever give us is to trust us enough to talk about these things, and we need to talk about these things. So thank you very much, for real.
Oh, you're very welcome. But yeah, like if anybody's like in the chat is like wondering, Jan put it perfectly. It's a lifestyle change. Like if you're going to do it, your life has to be different, because if you get out of detox back to the same life, you're going to drink.
GM of the cocktail bar was probably off the table.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I miss it. I absolutely loved it, but you know, that's done. But yeah, I think I went fucking absolutely off the rails. Did you ask about new music? You did, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were kind of before getting into that, it was you were kind of talking about, you know, I guess reasons for Black Tongue not necessarily being as active as some people would have figured, and you know the different factors that go into that. Obviously, your sobriety probably plays a big piece in that as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. So whilst there isn't a Black Tongue album or on the table right now, I do have loads of stuff that's, you know, going to be coming out probably this year, you know, that I think people are going to be really happy with. Now, one of the big things is I can't announce exactly the name of the band that I've joined, but they are a certain pretty cool Australian band, you know, of some renown. So, you know, that's you've done that. We've got a music video coming out soon. Done some singles. You know, we're working on a record. But that's really all I can say about that one. But what I can talk more at length about is the music that I've been writing with Aaron. So this isn't just this is quite a few different projects, but all really, you know, centered around working with Aaron. So it started with, so I'm just going to come out straight up and say, so we just covered the entire Masochist album by Alicia.
What?
Just covered every song. So because obviously as I said earlier on, we love them. We absolutely love them. Love them to bits. And we were like, what song should we cover? And we couldn't decide on it. And we were just like, fucking just do them all.
That's
so Aaron, cool. Aaron, he completely re-recorded all of the instruments, you know, like fixed up some like weird timing stuff, and like I tell you what, you really get a fucking appreciation for the instrumentation on that album. It's fantastic, and considering how young they were, it's just great. It's such a strange but amazing mix of like proper like incantation-y death metal with like just the most hardcoreness to it. It's just fantastic. I can talk about Masochist all day, but yeah, so we covered the fucking full thing, and we're like, how are we gonna fucking release this? Like, because we can't do it as Black Tongue, really. What are we gonna do? Like, who are we gonna say it's by? And I was like, I don't know. So we were thinking for ages, and we're like, we should probably we don't want to do a label. None of us have the fucking mental bandwidth to do a label. So we decided to do like a collective, and it's all based around, you know, like Aaron's studio essentially. And, you know, and so it's not just me and him, although like me and him make up, you know, the bulk of it. it's all of our friends as well that record with Aaron. So it's like a collective, and we'll have a platform and, a channel, like a Bandcamp, and we'll probably be putting stuff out, through TuneCore onto streaming services. And do videos, and we're going to be doing loads of like studio videos, so you can see, like what we go up to, and it's mainly just us being fucking idiots. And but we thought people would like to see it, especially like vocal stuff and like how the music is done.
I attested. I'm definitely part of people who wants to see that. Like I can see that working very well.
Yeah,
so
I think you'll enjoy it. We were working on one of the covers the other day. One of the the behind the scenes look at one of the covers when we're doing vocals, and it's a lot of fun. It's very silly because a lot of it is just all of the weird noises that I make when I'm not concentrating.
Yeah.
And it sounds like my brain is a radio receiver and someone's just flicking through the channels. A lot of me going for no reason. But so obviously we had that, and during the first lockdown, me, Aaron, and Eddie had made this just like kind of joke, like themed hardcore band that was just like about being like a proper British, like lager lout. So all the songs are just like about that. It is really stupid and pretty heavy. And we're like, we've got a few things here. So that's when we decided to do the collective. The collective is called Totem, which stands for Totem of the Egregore Media. So make a note of that, guys. There'll be cool stuff coming soon. But then like things kept, because obviously it's been years we're not really doing much. So, but behind the scenes, we've been making all this music, and like one of the other things that is coming out on Totem is going to be Shat Out, which is me and Aaron making some fucking death metal that I'm very happy with. We're basically thinking about all of the newer types of like deathcore and death metal adjacent stuff, and all the things that we've been listening to maybe in like the last 2-3 years, like the really, really like new stuff. Like, what do we like about that? Like, how can we add to this, without just ripping it off? So we started making Shat Out, and we like I used this term earlier in the podcast, but we're ugly. Like, we wanted to make ugly fucking metal, like really horrible. And it sums up quite a lot of the things that we're talking about earlier about what we liked about deathcore. Like, I think you could call it deathcore, definitely. It probably is, in fact. But there's a lot of brutal death metal in it as well.
I'd consider it, for having heard some things, I'd consider it deathcore, but I understand where you're coming from. Like, it's...
Yeah. It's like, because obviously, like, there's a lot of baggage with deathcore now. Like, it doesn't sound anything like fucking Lorna Shore. But then again, all classic,
more brutal death-oriented deathcore.
Yeah, so it's like brutal death with the dynamics of deathcore, really. And we had loads of fun doing it, and it's awful. And the lyrics are just fucking disgusting. Because I've been like, I don't know if you guys ever listened to the last podcast on the left.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I think you'd love them. They've been going around for like fucking well over 10 years now, and it's these three guys, and they mainly talk about they do like really good, really like thorough researched videos about serial killers. But there's way more to it now. They've like branched into like alien abductions, and just anything creepy and weird.
Yeah.
And obviously I had like 10 years worth of backlog to work through. So I've been listening to loads and loads of it, like going to sleep with it on, like listen to it every day. Cause obviously I used it as like a comfort thing when I was like feeling anxious. If I had somebody talking, like I just wouldn't have to worry about it. I had fucking loads and loads of them. And then we came to writing this thing, and it was all like fucking buzzing around in my head, about all these serial killers and stuff. So like, and obviously when I take lyric writing seriously, and I want to like, really get my feelings across, it takes me a long time. Like, it took me like 1.5 years to write the lyrics for the Deer. And a lot of the, like the little seeds for the songs have been floating around for years longer than that as well. But I find that if you add an edge of humor to it when you're writing it, even if it doesn't come across in the lyrics, it comes like it's just for you. It just spills onto the page because you take up the barriers of taking yourself too seriously.
The pressure comes off. It's just kind of like,
exactly. And then, but like I was fucking reading some of them back, and I was like, this is absolutely red hot. This is it's disgusting. But again, it's like I'm not the first person to write about fucking serial killers in death metal, am I? Like, if I'm not allowed to explore the darker elements of, the human condition in death metal, where am I allowed to do it?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and with a name like Shout Out, you can allow it to be kind of comedic. I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. People know it's a fucking laugh.
Because it's not, I wish I was the one discovering it, but I remember my friend coming in and tell me, when you seek devious stuff and whatever, he knew I was out of, the after Gent and everything. I kind of just went back to pop punk, whatever the hell I wanted to listen. And I remember he was showing me stuff like Sworn In, couple things, and not that it's not good, like it was fine. But I remember he came in with, I think it was one of your first tracks, because he was like a super geeky, like knowing everything that comes out. And he's like, this one, you're going to like, trust me. And I remember being like, oh, dude, like I'm not. And he's like,
yeah, you say this a lot.
And I remember because we were working in a skate shop back then. And he's like, and I'm like, show it. He's like, no. We're going in the car. You're going to listen to that properly. And I'm always going to remember. And like, the silence I remember and everything, but I'm so bad with names, but it wasn't one of your first songs for sure. Like I would be surprised if it was not.
Coke Sick was the one I had in mind. I was just re-listening real quick. Coke Sick is fucking awesome.
What's that? I need to look.
No, you don't have access to it yet. If you allow me, I'll send Yan a link too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, share it out. So we did Shout, and then we've got all of his all of the the things that are kind of related to his studio that we're coming out. Like a lot of our friends have, just like it's like the first go of really having an album and stuff. And working with Aaron's been really great for him because they can see what can be done with the music that they've made. But the last thing, and probably the most important thing, is Meat Slab.
You're gonna have to give us some backstory on this because Meat Slab was a thing.
Yeah,
right?
so the name Meat Slab has been around for a bit, and it's always been one of Aaron's pet things.
Notoriously, the band that never put out an album type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a while when we were doing this, I think Meat Slab was just like the working title for it. But over time, it's like, we're like, right, like this time for Meat Slab to become a thing. But yeah, it's definitely like been on the cards for Aaron for a while. It's definitely like his baby. But the type of music that it is definitely, it's like even more so than Shout Out. It's like it's like we wanted to write the most relevant, but like still summing up everything that we love so much about heavy, extreme metal in a way that we like, we were familiar with, but hadn't done it like this before. And I think like when I'm going to be describing it, it's like people are going to be like, well, it just sounds like you're describing Black Tongue, but it isn't.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think when people hear it, people that are disappointed that there's not been a Black Tongue album for ages, they're going to be really, really happy, and they're going to be like, shit. Because even for me, this means like whether we release it as an album or 2 EPs is like remains to be seen yet. But for me, it feels like the spiritual success of the Black Tongue.
I'm gonna spill it. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of music.
A lot of music, and it's fucking stupidly heavy, but like just in the ways that we love. And it's like, again, I don't feel like it's not boring in stupidly heavy. It's got great dynamics, but it's like hard to put into words. But the feel is different. Obviously, Aaron's worked really, really hard on the tone. And I think it's going to be a tone that like a lot of people it's like, I can't remember what it's called because I know nothing about guitars, but it's like HM2 or something, you know, the real fucking like chainsaw-y sounding thing that
Sure.
a lot of death metal adjacent bands are using now. It's like, it isn't exactly like that, but it has, you know, elements of that to it, whilst also being, you know, just sounds like somebody's playing guitar with like the strings from a fucking suspension bridge. But it's got like, I think you may agree, there's a lot more elements of like death and roll to it, you know, like
Sure.
death and roll elements to it. And it's like the two-steppy bits and the bits that are like quite obviously not death metal and sludge are very rock and rolly rather than just straight up hardcore. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of there's a lot of like old school death metal elements to it, but like a very specific type, like the Morbid Angel type of it, you know, the very slow, ponderous, like you can really appreciate, you know, just the savoring of a very simple note, or like, again, like it's like because like if you think back on like the Black Tongue album, it's like Nadir is Black Tongue plus death metal and black metal, mm-hmm. and the Unconquerable Dark is Black Tongue plus doom and post grunge, and you know, fucking Born Hanged is Black Tongue plus you know, like that era of deathcore, you know what I mean? Yeah. But and I feel like Meat Slab is perhaps what Black Tongue would have become with their old school death metal influence. So I think people are going to like it. I think there's a lot there for fans of Black Tongue. There's a lot there for new fans as well, because it's got the nice heaviness, you know, the ponderousness of it. But there's so much more new stuff that we've never experimented with before. That it definitely isn't a Black Tongue album. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of stuff there for fans of Black Tongue, which is nice, and I'm really excited for people to hear it.
Two very different projects too. I just want to add, like, I feel like it's cool, even vocally, you explored some different things on both of these projects, right? And I think, dude, if you like heavy music and you're not into any of these two projects, you're fucked in the head. Like you might just not enjoy heavy music. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'll be very surprised. Yeah, I like you saying about me experimenting with new vocal things on it. I think that's been my favorite part about this, is doing new vocal stuff, because just frankly, I was bored of what my vocals sounded like. I felt like I'd got as far as I could with the style that I was doing. I thought I'd got as far as I could, and I couldn't get any more. Heavy is not the right word. Heavy is too nebulous of a term. I couldn't add any more to it. And again, like as I was saying, the music that we were making was ugly, and I wanted to make ugly music. So my vocals on it are ugly. So so like people, you know, I think the obvious thing that people will pick out is like, oh, you've started doing Tunnel Throat. It's like, well, I wouldn't say I've started doing Tunnel Throat. Yeah, it's like I haven't just given up everything and gone to Tunnel, because as I said, I don't feel like you can add enough personality. But I practiced a lot of Tunnel stuff and found what I could add Tunnel Throat to, or not even just straight up Tunnel Throat. What, you know, like the mouth shapes and the things that I was doing, you know, to facilitate those sounds. What other styles can I apply those things to? Mm-hmm. And it's made some fucking horrible sounding shit, and I love it. Like, and it's great. And because I'm really into, like, I don't think old school death metal revival is the right term, because again, we were talking about earlier, a lot of it is still core.
I get what you mean though. There is like this newer wave of like that kind of grindy death metal kind of stuff going on right now.
Yeah,
it's not quite old school, but it's got a bit of that feel.
Yeah, definitely, it's got like the edge to it, and I just really liked some of the vocals that, like, you know, they sound like you're yelling across like a fucking like windswept cavern. You know, they sound like not super far away, but they're like echoey. I was like, fuck, I love that. I was like, and I heard like a lot of the bands, and it's like that's their one trick, and it's like,
Right.
it's cool, but like, you know, that's all you're doing.
Again, dynamics,
so
right?
Like, absolutely. So, and again, with the bits that are straight up tunnel, which I absolutely do. It fucking sounds mint. It's used at the right time, you know. So it isn't the same style of vocals all the way through. It's like just listening out for when would sound good. And obviously, like those big bellowy, like echoey ones, they're easy to, you know, place, because it's always at the resolution of like a line and a riff, and it's got like a little break in break in the sound. Like I'm bad at explaining it because I don't have a musical bone in my body, but
no, but I get what you mean though. But it mostly comes down to just serving the songs, right? And not to go off on a tangent again, but like, you know, I think a lot of the newer deathcore stuff kind of gets lost in the sauce in those regards, right? Like, it's one thing to be able to do a million different tones and these different things, but it's got to serve the song, right? It's got to be placed tastefully. It's got to, you know, it's got to work with what you're actually trying to convey and what you're trying to do and what the rest of the song speaks to. So, and that's, you know, listening to the two projects, you know, that's never something that's crossed my mind, right? Like, oh, this feels out of place, or oh, this. I think I don't know if it comes down to a lot of you, or a combination of you and Aaron, or how that kind of all transpires. But just from a songwriting perspective, it's, you know, Black Tongue was already that, but like it's great. It flows. It's meaningful. It makes sense. And I don't know. I'm kind of stingy on those sort of things, and I really appreciate it from you.
Because I feel like we were talking about that with the chat before, you know, while you guys were preparing and all that. There's this, to me, misconception that having a like range and doing everything is going to make it better, or you're better as a vocalist and stuff like that. And I get these comments quite a lot. Even uniqueness,
right? It's not because something's unique that like it's inherently good, right? It has
doesn't
to
mean that
work.
as well.
It has to fit
like,
well. It has to, yeah.
It's not because you're the first doing it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it first or after 20%. Those things, in my opinion, just don't matter. You need to take it as it is. And those comments, because you saw right on my page, I think you commented like I'm doing like top fives, like vocalist things, and I'm starting with the OGs and whatnot, and people are upset. They're like, and you know, like not everybody, but a lot of people are like, you know, some people have more range and stuff, and I'm like, doesn't really matter. It's cool, it's awesome, and I'm not saying they're not good, but it's just different. To me, it's like saying, oh, a guitar has more strings, so it's a better guitar. It doesn't mean it's different. It's cool, you can do more, but I know plenty of vocalists doing, you know, not many things. Like they do like one or two things, they mix it well together.
One
works
badass
perfectly.
fucking tone. Sometimes just does the trick, you know?
I've seen people saying like, oh, Phil Bozeman, but he's mostly doing that. I'm like, yeah, but he's freaking amazing at what he's doing. So who cares? It works, you know? So my vision, I feel like a lot of newer, you know, vocalists, the way they see it is like, they probably feel pressure of like, I need to show everything I've got in the big breakdown type thing.
I'm going to say it. It's an insecurity.
Yeah, probably. It's like, I need to appear. I need to show that I know all the techniques, where at the end of the day, it doesn't, like, at least for me, it doesn't matter. If you did it well, I couldn't care less. You could do one thing. If it works and it's awesome, cool, you know? So I feel like there's this misconception of more range, better, like, artists. That's my take on.
I agree. It's like you genuinely run the risk of becoming cartoonish in an already cartoonish style of music. Like it gets. I've had some bits recently, and it's like, I hate the word cringe. It's not exactly cringing, but it's like tiresome.
Yeah.
It's like, you do it. Yeah, you're doing that thing. Yeah, you're doing the bit. Yeah, fuck, you did it, man. It's like the song shit.
Caricature of what, you know, vocals are.
That's it. Yeah.
And there's also another factor that's very important, very difficult to do, which you guys did many times, is the memorable factor. It needs to be memorable. So if you go around and it's a breakdown, as much as you go crazy, if your breakdown is just boom, double bass and just, it's not that it's not good, but if a lot of people are doing that, it's just going to be like, oh, this heavy part. So like there's tons of stuff behind me, like the Chelsea Green EP that I talked about, like in Chain Stroke, like you're buried inside. Like I remember those parts. It's in my mind, and you can vibe to it. So like there's so many more things than just like, oh, he's versatile, he can do everything. Yeah, but you know, songwriting, being memorable, you know, all those things, to me is way more important.
Well, yeah, I think that's correct across like all music. Is, and I think music particularly as well, like music and advertisement, which unfortunately have a huge crossover. It's the hook. Even if the hook's not like a traditional pop hook, the hook's important, and it sounds shit. So I think a lot of people take metal really seriously to the point where it's like they won't entertain good music or good music theory because it goes against what metal is. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I can tell you, but what you think metal is applies only to you. And again, as I was saying earlier, when you're listening and when you're experiencing the metal, take it seriously. That's the best way to experience it. But when you stop listening to it, be a normal fucking person again. Like, don't be a metal cultist, because you are always wrong. Just as everybody who has that weird cultist mentality for bizarre little sub things is always wrong.
It's weird if there's a place in life that I always thought would have no rules, it was deathcore and metal and stuff like that. And
you would fucking think so.
I was wrong, man. I'm assuming it. I was horribly wrong ever since I started my channel. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like I'm documenting doing videos about bands and stuff. That being said, I need to do one about your bands while we're talking about that. But it's crazy how people get hung up on. You say one sentence, like one little bit. This album was a little more technical. You don't know what technical is. Oh my god! Like I'm so sorry.
Well, let me tell you my theory on it. And I think it's because the people that aren't. No, I don't want to. I need to choose my words very carefully, because this is not an attack against fans, even remotely. This is an attack against people like this specifically. But you'll find that it's people that want to extend any modicum of power, and you'll get this in every shade of humanity, not just in music scenes. And they don't have the talent to write music, but music is that's their hat that they wear. They're in this music scene. That's their tribe, which you're already getting on for trouble with tribalism, but hey, that's just what people are like. And they're like, right, how do I extend any power in this scene without actually being in the scene myself? It's like, well, I'll do that by being an absolutely heinous prick in the everything that surrounds the scene. Like they're not a creator, but they're big in the scene. Do you know what I mean? You'll always meet people that are big in the scene, and they're always fucking cunts.
They have a voice. They have a voice, kind of. People listen to it. Yeah.
And they're always whoppers. They're always fucking whopper juniors every time, because not many people get power and know how to wield it properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good take. It's a good take.
Thank you. I would like to know what your theory is on why deathcore was despised so much back in the day when it first came out.
Yeah, Dom, if you want to start, it's fine.
We kind of touched on it earlier. I think, that we're taking elements from two different scenes, and both of those scenes didn't like the crossover, right? So it was kind of like deathcore kind of inherently had to create a new fan base that was outside of hardcore and death metal, right? It was kind of like hard to, and that would kind of be attributed to people in both those camps being closed-minded to begin with, sure, but like it was always in that in between. Metal elitism, ultimately. That's really what it comes down to for the most part. People were quick to dismiss it as just another phase, right? So I think a lot of people, especially in like the music industry and stuff like that, didn't see the staying power in it. They didn't take it seriously because of that. A lot of bands didn't necessarily have
Couldn't have been more
the
wrong.
same kind of like, exactly. Right. Like dude, but to not to their credit, but like to their point, kind of, deathcore was gone for a minute, right? It's crazy to talk about deathcore in 2024 now, to see how big it is and to see it's like bigger than ever, if anything.
Newer bands and newer. It's crazy,
dude. I've been ride or die for this thing. I wouldn't have expected that we'd be having a fucking podcast exclusively talking about deathcore in the year 2024, and that people would be here for it, right? So even I was kind of surprised with deathcore making a comeback and all this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's I think that there were like it was uncomfortable for both genres from where it came from. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, the scene kids were kind of made fun of as well, and that was a majority of the fan base as well. So that was a whole other thing, right? Like,
I don't know if it was your point, because I have a very similar take, and it has to do with the scene kids, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. The death metal scene, it's full of dudes who loves being obscure, underground, manly, and I'm saying that, but don't take my words like that. I'm saying what the scene was, but like, and then they literally saw kids coming out of metalcore with purple jeans, super tight, and like
effeminate boys in like a size small shirt,
swoopy hair and stuff, going in a mic. And you want my hot take on why they were pissed? It was
because they got a boner and it confused them.
And it was, maybe, but it was heavier as shit. I'm so sorry, but like, as much as I love that metal, I know we can argue, but it was heavy as shit. It was no denying that early Suicide Silence, We Are the End, all that stuff. Nobody can tell me, oh, listen to that metal, it's not heavy. I would argue it's way more extreme, my dude. Come on. Yeah. So that, and then not only that, but we walk in a scene and we make it twice as big in a few years, in a few months. So like they felt like their scene, obscure, underground, dark thing was being taken away. It was the same thing as pop punk with punk. Same kind of thing when Blink-182 and they came in, like punk was supposed to be this revolt, this like raw sound, and they saw guys naked with a pink guitar just being like they were just like, you're making fun of our stuff. They took it personal when deathcore arrived, but little did they know, everyone in the deathcore scene thought that metal was cool. We had nothing against anything. Most of these bands were fans of death metal. It was just a new thing that everybody kind of, we latched in and we loved it. But when things are changing, it makes people super pissed. And you see it in every single scene, almost everything new that's going to happen. Every new sound, Emmure was hated.
It's so short. It's so close-minded, though, and short-sighted is the word I was looking for. It's so short-sighted because I think a lot of people in those sort of scenarios kind of they don't look at the fact that like it's all these things come in abundance. Like there's more of everything to love. Like a deathcore band existing doesn't mean a death metal band dies. All these bands. Like it's not that none of that is reality. That's not like a real thing.
There was space for everyone.
Yeah, and if anything, I look at the rise of deathcore right now, like with Lorna Shore and all these bands doing it like bigger than ever. They're just bringing in newer fans, more new fans than death metal ever has. Like when's the last time death metal brought in that many new fans from being such a popular genre? It was like fucking Cannibal Corpse and in the movies and stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I think people are quick to think that one thing winning means that something else loses.
And it's like that in everything.
It's like that in everything.
In every single video game, anything, everything. It's always like that.
It's black and white thinking, isn't it? Yeah. And it's honestly a sign of fucking low intelligence. It does my fucking head in.
Insecurities, kind of, and they make music. Don't get me wrong. I love music, right? But they make music their entire personality. I dared, because I have kind of this deathcore, like a lot of people are calling me like the hardcore dude, whatever. So like when I said Blink-182 was my favorite band, oh my God, like you're not a real metalhead. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't care. But like so many people, it's their entire life, entire personality, so like they feel threatened. They're like, you're not part of us.
That goes back to what you were saying, Alex, with like, you know, the people just being dickheads and like that display of power. Like it's that same kind of personality thing, I think, right? I think the people you're talking about are specifically people that make music their entire personality, right?
Yeah.
Usually
and another, because they don't create it themselves.
Yeah.
There's a, like, I'm sorry if it's a hot take, but it's just
we're
really what
on
I
some
think.
hater shit today. I love it.
Back then, it might be a hot take, but here's another reason I think they were pissed. Oh my God. I'm so sorry if it appears really bad, people, but like,
you got a guest appearance here.
We had a lot of beautiful girls in the scene and stuff like that. And death metal was, let's be real, full of, you know, neck beards and sweat.
There was more there for, you know, women to latch onto.
It was more mixed, you know, even at the shows, right? Like we had, so they perceived it as, like, you know what I mean? Like they were bashing Justin Bieber for the same reason. Oh, your audience, or Bring Me the Horizon, your audience now has girl. Like if it's a bad thing that it's mixed, right? But I feel like deathcore really early on it was mixed. You had like all these
profiles. It was just young people. It was a youth genre.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why they hated it. Is
they didn't like it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Perceived youth genres. The old heads that again make it their entire personality, they feel that it hasn't been earned despite the subjectiveness of music. And I mean, this is something that I've only really thought about recently. And like, I wonder if one of the reasons why they despised deathcore so much and thought it hadn't been earned is because when some of the older ones had been cutting about in America, the satanic panic was happening. And alternative people genuinely actually were under threat from violence from Christian extremists. You know, that changes my mind on it like a little bit, but I don't know if that is the case. And more of the world exists than America, and you know the European ones are just as bad. So, but yeah, I think because it was a young person's game, they were like, "You haven't earned it." And for some, because it's like, and speaking to what you were saying, there just seems to be a lot of like misogyny tied into it. But you find misogyny tied into a lot of things that, you know, like unfortunately come with like fucking tribalism and low intelligence. Do you know what I mean? It's a fucking low hanging fruit to go for, and it's despicable. But
kind of pissed off, angry, but in the bad way.
Let's be real though. A lot of older deathcore was pretty misogynistic, so they could have found something to jive with, if anything. To say about that as well.
But
it was like,
and I'm laughing. Like it's not really funny, like, but you know, it's just the actual. It was the machismo genre, but for the freaks. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas the machismo genre's for other stuff that went for the freaks, but unfortunately, I feel like it drew just a lot of people that were bullied for being different, and they didn't have the presence of personality or the moral fucking backbone to not let the world make them cruel. So they got bullied, so they became cruel instead of getting bullied and using that to learn how to treat people. And I think, unfortunately, like underground things draw that type of person in because they're the other. Do you know what I mean? They're the freak. I was one of them. I was a freak. Still, I'm a freak. But unfortunately, with that comes a lot of fucking resentment. And the easiest people to fucking spew all that vitriol onto is young people that you've forced this fucking projected. As you were saying, it's like, oh, you're stealing what was ours. It's like, we're stealing shit. Yeah.
We're stealing fuck all. And you could tell it was pathetic because I still remember vividly, like, what people were saying. Like, I remember, like, just complete tautologies and just trivial shit. Like, I remember, what was it? What was that band called? Fucking, they had The Impaler. The song was called The Impaler.
Fit for an Autopsy?
Winds of Plague?
Oh, Winds of Plague.
Winds of Plague, as they, yeah. It was just like somebody commented, just this was years ago. This was like college, so I just remember it on this forum, and it was just like Winds of Plague are shit. Why? Because they perform deathcore. I was like, that's not a reason. That's not a fucking reason.
Nothing constructive.
It was those same people that used to go fucking bananas about inhaling. And Brian, man, do you remember when Brian was like fucking frowned upon?
Yes, sir.
I remember frowned upon so heavily and for so long that like maybe like 3 years ago when I started hearing bands Brian again, I was like, we're fucking back, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's crazy because, I did a lot of videos, like over 40 videos about deathcore band. And every single time I read the review, every time, like on the best album, on the biggest album, they would not even talk about the music, not the band themselves, nothing. They shit on deathcore, the whole review. It's supposed to be an album review. And I'm just like, you just said that it's deathcore, and deathcore
you shouldn't be allowed to review. If you like that, you shouldn't be allowed to review.
It's like if I'm a movie critic, I hate horror movies and I review horror movies. I'm like, well, it's an horror movie, so it's terrible.
So it's shit, but it's also all I talk about.
yeah. I'm just gonna keep saying it sucks every time I can. So
I think we got a review of our first album in fucking Terrorizer. I don't know if you get Terrorizer over there, but it's like I think we got 1 out of 10. I was like, oh, fuck you.
One star for the one note they used throughout this entire album.
And my theory, like these people, it's impossible. I could be wrong. I really doubt that they did anything music-wise in their entire life. I would be very surprised if they did something well. Because
even if they did, doesn't really.
No, but even if they did. But I mean, when you do, like I'm doing music, right? Like I know how much work it is. I won't just shit on something or saying that there's no talent. And I'm never going to say that in my entire life. Worse, I'm just going to say, it's not for me, this thing or this. But being a critic, like, even if you hate, like, you can't stand it, you didn't like it. Like, you're supposed to have the ability to just, within what they do, okay, I can see this and this, like, kind of open up your, because why are you here?
Oh, you can at least explain why you think it's shit. Right?
Yeah. Just, I didn't like this sound.
They often can't explain it. They can't put it into words because what they're trying to describe is culture war bullshit, and culture war bullshit is always fucking wrong and dumb. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they're like, oh, even if they don't realize, and I don't think some of them have the fucking presence of mind to realize that that's what they're doing. They're like, it's shit. Like, why is it shit? And it's because it is what it is, and what it is shit. That don't make a fucking lick of sense, dude.
Nope.
Tell me why it's bad.
Exactly. Because when it's constructive, I'm like, I can see that. Like, if somebody's like, I don't like this because of that, okay, fair, fair enough. But just, it's shit.
I always come back to it. I always come back to this
critic.
I always come back to the same example, but like I was digging into some reviews for different Suicide Silence albums, and The Cleansing, the reviews from back then, because it was like super fucking early deathcore still, and all the fucking outlets hated the fuck out of deathcore.
Despite it being fucking savage.
Savage in a cultural moment and so fucking iconic and a staple to the scene now. You look at the reviews from back then, have the same scores as the self-titled that they put out years later that everybody within the deathcore scene hated. Like, they were both scored like super low. And I'm like, there's no world that we live in. Like, even the guys would agree that there's such a difference between the two, right? And it's just crazy because the perception has also changed, right? Like now it's different. Like now deathcore's cool for what it's worth, right? It's accepted
as like metal, like in the middle.
People don't really
it's not a dirty word anymore,
right? Like people don't really bat an eye if you tell them you're in a deathcore, but okay, cool. It's a some set of fucking extreme metal or whatever,
Well, it's because the fans of deathcore are now in their 30s, and people in their 30s aren't bothered about being cool.
Yeah. Exactly. But
then the opposite spectrum of that is there's a ton of new people coming into deathcore that are super fucking young. And that goes back to the youthfulness that you were talking about earlier, right? Like that changes everything. And there's a whole revival thing going on with like the MySpace like sounding era bands and stuff. And it's all super young fucking kids, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids doing this music. And you can feel that same kind of, I say it's naive, but that's not like a negative connotation to it, but it's just like it's naively youthful. I don't give a fuck about anything or how people feel about this energy.
Creating art for art's sake, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the best thing. It's the best thing that's happened to deathcore, in my opinion, in recent years.
Oh, for sure.
Is that
there's beauty in that. Say really quick. I never thought in a million years I would get to live through MySpace deathcore a second time.
Me neither,
I never thought that happened, and I get to do it, and I'm fucking buzzing.
Never.
But this time as an old fan.
now we recognize the good times, though, right? Like while we're in it. Like now I can appreciate it probably a lot more than bad. Like I don't take it for granted today. Like we're doing like a show like this right now, and I'm like I'm soaking it in because these are the good times. I'm living for it, exactly. Right? Whereas before it was just kind of you were just getting, yeah.
Yeah. It's as you said, I feel like before, as much as now, we look back and we feel like, I think we all knew it was special. I remember finding We Are the End, all those bands, and I was like, we felt that something was going on, but I don't feel like we knew how big this thing would be and how impactful it would truly be. We were just there in the moment. We loved MySpace. Like we definitely took MySpace for granted, like thinking that it's just going to be there.
I grew up scared shitless of the idea that at the age that I'm currently at, I would only be listening to the radio. Because that's but because I would look at, let's say, my parents at my age, and that's what it turned into, and they listened to Pink Floyd and shit when they were younger, and Zeppelin and shit like that. But that's not what they were listening to when they were 35. So I always had this like thought in the back of my mind. I'm like, am I enjoying like this whole metal and deathcore, death metal thing now, and I'm going to become old at some point or whatever? And thankfully, I'm here to let the young me know that. Yeah.
Sound effects, baby. Annotations, baby.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Little did I thought the same thing, and I'm sure most of our parents or people around were probably like, this screaming thing, he won't. And here I am, 32, still doing it.
It's just a phase, Mom. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, they were. Yeah.
I lost the swoopy hair, but still here for the music.
Hell yeah, man! Well, I touched on it a little bit earlier, like what you were saying then about like the whole screaming thing, about like how like important it is to me, and I imagine it's the same for a lot of people. And like like what I'm going to say, I think a lot of people will just think, it's fucking talking out his ass, just bullshit. But I think it really just talked to like that weird kind of mix between the really, really primal, like the like proper animalistic part, and how that connects to like higher consciousness, and then like the more fringe things, like depending on whatever it is you believe in. But like mainly through like Aaron's kind of like tutelage, like me and him have like very different beliefs on things. Like I come from a very kind of almost like hardcore materialist background, whereas Aaron's is like a lot more spiritual. But we've kind of like met in like a nice middle place, So I've had my horizons open a bit. I still hold my beliefs and things, but like the main thing was when I was in detox, we were doing these these gong things after doing this like really intense yoga. And this acupuncture thing, and then doing a guided meditation thing, and I had just the most insane fucking physical and mental like experience like ever. And I was like, I don't think I left my body. I'll never say that. I don't think like an angel visited me, but I realized that like inwards goes way further down than you think it does. Do you know what I mean? There's like people saying about how every human being is like an ocean. Like, I believe that a lot more now after my experience. I'm not one of these people that thinks, oh, I experienced this, so like this is reality. You know, I never believe anything to be true. I just put it in little boxes of things that are more likely. But after experiencing that, I was more open to like some of the things it said. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about is like, it isn't just like we love like esoteric air and like, you know, old school like magic practice and things like that and hermeticism and things. But like a lot of the things that we discuss and we like research and watch videos on and stuff is like, in that is free. It's like fringe science, you know. It's like things. It's like stuff people are researching, whether it turns out to be true or not. But I'm fucking rambling. Anyway, a lot like some of the things I'm getting to. I've been reading a lot more about like magic, like in its most serious sense. It's in the sense that like, because you got to think like before the, you know, the age of enlightenment or the age of information, people saw and treated the world very differently. And it's impossible to imagine what that was like. You can't do it because you can't take the information that we have out. And we essentially know everything. We know how big the world is, what's on the other side of the world, what animals live there. And more than that, we know we've looked under the fucking hood and seen how like atoms, you know, we're not how they work or how they present themselves to us. And but you can't fucking take that away. And like everyone in the world can know that if they want to, or you know, if they have the opportunity. But even a couple of 100 years ago, that was completely different. And if you go even further back in time to like pre-history, things were different. But what people have always done is practiced some form of magic. I hate using the word because it's so loaded, but I'm also completely loath to make up some bullshit third world, because that's what it is magic. Because despite us being made out of physical, non-thinking matter, we do think. That is the mystery of fucking conscious life, in it, the mystery of it. And we have a tendency to think in what is called magical thought, in like illogical things where we try to grant or force power, or, you know, events that do not follow the laws of science. We've done that for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think a lot of these things were just wrong. And it was just people, I think in fact, the vast majority was just confirmation bias. I think it's always been confirmation bias. But when I started thinking about this in relation to what I'd experienced and what I started to believe about how the inner self goes down way, way further and is way more powerful, is that the things that do work within magic practice are the things that you do to yourself to affect physical change on the world. Because if you can affect the brain, which I've come to believe is like one of the only points in nature where the unknowable, essentially the mind, you know, the non-physical, makes contact with the physical in the brain, and then the thoughts and the desires and the things that come from, you know, this big fucking void inside of you can affect change on the physical world, because your fucking physical body does it. Like beep, beep, getting proper into the weeds with it. But all of that really does tie into me doing vocals. Like earlier I said about how it was like a form of magic for me, and I didn't realize what I'd been doing until I thought back on it through this lens. But when people see us live, they always comment on how it's a completely different experience seeing us live to seeing us to listening to us on CD.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that is down, you know, is down to, like, in a similar way to how we were talking about the delivery of vocals on the album. It's like the way I present myself on stage is because I'm a very anxious person in real life. As I was saying, I have anxiety disorder, but when I go on stage, I was doing this automatically, but I now know there is a term for it, and I know that it is linked to ancient magical practice. It's called mantling, where I'm taking on the mantle of something else, which will allow me to act as that thing. Mm-hmm. But that thing that I was taking the mantle on of is I created that, like stage Alex, or whatever you want to call it. I projected that forward. I made it, and then I put it on. And like, and I know it worked, because when I moved to York and I started working in that like high pressure environment, and every day walking to work, I was having a panic attack for fucking months and months.
Same kind of thing, probably too. Projecting something that you're not. Yeah.
And it was the same. It was the same mantle. It was the same personality I was putting on. And it changed, and they're like, and people, if anybody's in the chat that has seen us live, you'll be able to attest. I fucking lose my mind, and it's like, it's not like I black out, and then when I come to doing it, it's still me, but it's so primal and so like animalistic, and there's the fucking eyes rolling back in my head, and like throwing myself around the stage and shit, like all over the place, like and at no point do I ever feel like I'm pretending. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like I've gone so far to say that I've like lost my mind or anything. I don't feel like I'm pretending. I feel like I'm enacting something. And I've come to understand that I'm doing very similar things to how people would do ritual magic. And I think that's pretty fucking cool.
There is something to be said about just, I think, performing live in general, right? Whether it be from the rush that you get from performing live, which is kind of its own other indescribable thing, right? Like the rush you get from performing and the energy that you feed from the crowd, and how that goes two ways, and to the stuff that you're just explaining now. Like, there's so much, I think, within a live show that, I think to what you were saying earlier, like it's a different experience live than it is on CD. It always will be, because of those like weird, like intangibles, those things that we have a hard time describing or putting words to, or
it's the live music setting is like nothing else in the world, is it? It's, and I think it's something to do with it being a group of people, because society now has become so unnatural and so far removed from what the human brain was designed to be like. Can you imagine how many like events were held in prehistory where it was groups of people that all knew each other and all loved each other, dancing and throwing themselves around and pretending to be fucking animals and things, and like what they thought that was doing as well. You know, like the power that they thought that brought them. And we're doing the exact same thing whenever we see, and it's not just music. I mean, I think music's the better example, but it's comedy, and it's a similar thing with like plays and things. It's a bit different because the audience is expected to be silent, but when the audience can join in, like I've said this for a long time, the audience when a music show is just as much of a participant as the fucking musicians are for a 100%. Good show.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, it can go both ways, right?
I actually can't hear Jan anymore.
Nope.
It's my fault. I was muted because there was noise outside. I just realized that it might be why, because I tried. Because like I thought it was super interesting, and I love that you said that Aaron was more spiritual. I'm definitely on that side, if I'm honest. Extremely spiritual. Yeah. Every time I eat, I ask, like, I thank the universe, like I'm that person. So what I hear in what you say is a lot of intention and manifestation. I'm sure he's talking about those things with you, right? I'm sure you guys are talking about that, but like, it's a real thing. When you fully believe in what you create and you send it with an intention, it's something that even someone who don't know you at all, without knowing it, is going to feel that intention, is going to receive that. It's way more powerful. And that's a part of the magic thing you were describing. If
you can see it from both sides, can't you? Like you can see how it works from the spiritual side and from the materialist side, and it doesn't really matter what the cause is. It's just that the effect is felt and that is real.
Yep, and we need both too. Like,
sorry, my cat was scratching the door.
Totally fine.
You're good.
But for what it's worth, we need both. We need people, because a lot of people are trying to say like, oh, you need to be more spiritual. I don't believe in that. I believe in a good balance personally. And I feel like we need people grounded more on other things, and we need people more spiritual. It creates this amazing balance. Like people, when they discover something, they want everybody to be the same, but it shouldn't be like that. There's beauty in, we need all kinds
the zeal of the newly converted.
It's cool. I understand that though, you know, because that's what they can relate on. I get it. But as somebody who's super spiritual, in my really close circle, I have some people who are absolutely not, and it's fine, you know. Like I love that.
It's good, in fact. Yeah,
it's very good. It keeps me a little more grounded, because I would probably be a mess. So I just
me and Aaron, we've been discussing like the idea that the dichotomy between spiritual and scientific is a very modern phenomenon, and that for a long time the two, there was no difference between them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that isn't me saying that like, oh yeah, everything people believed about magic is true. I don't believe that at all. I think most of everything is wrong, but not all of it. You know what I mean? Like, and sense. That the more that we understand about, you know, the really the proper building blocks of the universe and about how things came about and things, is that this very temporary split between spirituality and, you know, science is going to come right back together, and it's going to become like a third thing. There is neither of those two, but it is very much its own thing. Mm-hmm. And that it's just the language to describe these things. There doesn't need to be the dichotomy between these things anymore. We discover what is just bullshit, you know, and what isn't. Yeah. And I guess there are people that say, well, then it becomes science. But I think that isn't true, because one of the main things about the spiritual is that it involves the unknowable, which is your personal experience. And there is nothing in the universe that can show you what somebody else is experiencing, truly. Like, and so I think that combination between the completely unknowable, but definitely real, because it is you know yourself to be real, and you can affect physical change on the universe. The combination of that and the material is what we're going to end up with further down the line, and the split between the two is going to come back together.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure we're boring the shit out of all these deathcore bands with all this metaphysical nonsense.
I love it, dude. I love it. For what it's worth, we often, not necessarily specifically this kind of subject matter, but we on the show here, we love talking about stuff that's not inherently just music and stuff like that. So
those are kind of my favorite parts.
Those always, when I think back to like interesting conversations that we've had, those are usually the ones that come up for me. It's
always good, because I've been fucking bursting out my skin to talk about this.
Dude, that's awesome. We want to be a place more than that, right? Like we love having the faces of that core, and like you're definitely part of that. But like I think as a viewer or community and stuff like that, we're all more interested than just like, hey, what did you do on that instrument? What did you do in 2015? Like it's more like you as a person, let's vibe together. Let's just like, you know, see what's behind all of that. That's the whole thing, you know, and for what it's worth, like it would, like all of that was extremely, everything you touched on, like there's not a single thing I was like, like everything was super interesting. And
we went deep into the vocal techniques and all that too. So, you know, it's not like we didn't have that either.
We didn't gloss over it.
and now people are extremely excited because there's new things coming. And I think it was like one of the big worry during those years, like people just wanted more, like are we going to see more, and they're going to be served. Like it sounds like you're doing quite a lot of things.
I got a lot of stuff. I think the when you find out which band it is and when we release the music video, I think people are going to be fucking super stoked, because it's like a very different style to what you've heard from me before. Oh, partner! It's a very different style to what you've heard from me before. And then on top of that, Meat Slab. And, you know, people that like Black Tongue, they're going to be like, oh shit, yeah, this is the next thing on from Nadir. I don't know if everybody involved with Meat Slab would say that, but for me, that's what it is. And then Shout Out is just fucking great, horrible deathcore. There's going to be something for everybody.
Plus the covers, all that, dude. I'm fucking stoked.
We need to fucking talk about it. Guys,
You're going to be fucking buzzing, right?
So I've got I'm just going to fucking tell you exactly what we're doing. So I nearly lost my mind. I apologize, guys. Right. So that totem thing I was telling you about, one of the big things that we're going to be doing on there is we're going to be doing something called MySpace Mondays. So every Monday, we're going to be releasing a new cover of one of the classic MySpace songs.
We're
And
talking
I'm not talking
classics
like
of the classics. I can confirm.
Pre-2009 minimum. And we're trying to pick some of the ones that like
cut bangers.
Yeah, the deep cut, like right in the fucking meat of it. I'm just gonna tell you exactly which ones we've already got ready to go. We've got fucking Welcome to Sludge City by Annotation of an Autopsy.
What?
We've got, obviously I mentioned earlier, we've got the full Elysia album. We've got fucking Sky's Most Wanted Goodbyes.
What?
We've got fucking Her Demise, My Rise. Let's get fucked up. We've got Rust by Catalepsy. We've got fucking...
That's my favorite, by the way. You were asking for favorites earlier. Trust that song is very dear and near to me personally, but the rendition of the song is fucking awesome.
Thank you. It's always a roll of the dice when anybody's heard of catalepsy or not. Like some people, cool, love them, and then like other people that I thought would definitely know about them, like done. So I'm excited about that one, just because like it seems to be maybe one of the lesser known ones. What else do we got? I think there's two more that I've missed off.
We got Decades of Deception.
Okay, yeah, that was the first one. Decades of Deception. And
did you mention Kalira?
So This Is Suffering.
Yeah.
So This Is Suffering too? Holy shit. And by the way, you said Her Demise, My Rise. It's still one of my favorite thing. And in our community, we have Jake from Her Demise, My Rise. I'm sure it's going to be extremely stoked.
No way. I'm buzzing.
I'm sure. I'm not sure he's there now, but like he's gonna be so freaking stoked to hear the new, especially your take on those.
Yeah.
Look. The other thing I want to add to that, and because I feel like you're not selling it enough, these are your guys' renditions of these songs. I want to make that clear.
Yes.
Like it's not just like a cover. It's their version of these songs, and it is fucking badass, dude. It is fucking awesome.
They're not so different that you're going to be like, it's a different thing.
The songs are the songs, right? But there's some twists in there that make these worth listening to, as opposed to a lot of people that just do covers that is just, it could have just been you screaming over the normal instrumental, right? But it's a lot more than that, and it's fucking badass. Yeah.
But like you guys, let's be real. Like you have like, I always call that like an Avenger team. Like look at the musicians together, like usually what comes out. So like this amount of talent together on those songs who were already, let's be real, already like called amazing, band. We're talking We Are the Ends. I'm very curious to hear. I know beforehand that it's going to be like crazy extreme and super sick. So like, I don't see a world where people won't be happy. So
you've not heard them yet, have you?
No,
you
I haven't. I'll send them to Yen after.
You need to send them over. But yeah, I mean that's just what we've got so far as well. We've got this folder with all the original MP3s, and it is long. So we're going to probably be doing it as long as we possibly can. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good idea.
I hope it can teach a lot of all these newer kids that are like coming up into old school deathcore, that it can like point them in the direction of some bands that are like pretty hard to find now. So that could be
beautiful honor for those bands too, right? They're all going to be happy. But it's kind of just like for all those bands, it's also very good that you're doing that. It's shining some light on the classic and everything.
Yeah, so that's our whole MO, right? Like having these conversations and Yan with his YouTube channel, all this stuff. It's all about giving love to these bands that we fucking loved when we grew up and don't necessarily get as much love today as as we'd enjoy. So it's always fun when there's, because something like what you're doing with these covers is like no one's doing that shit. So it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be, I'm sure there's gonna be people that are gonna be here for it. Like you're doing this sort of stuff specifically in like the perfect time. I think people are here for the old shit right now.
Yeah,
timing is
that's what I thought.
right.
Like when you asked me to be on here, I was like, this is fucking the planets aligning. It's all coming together. It's the perfect opportunity.
And people were happy, man. Like the second it was announced, like, because it was requested. I'm sure Dom told you, but it was requested quite a bit. Like even on my channel, do a video with Black Tongue.
People couldn't shut the fuck up about you, Alex, but we made it work. We made it happen.
Make the change.
It was so fun too, you know, like I really love everything we touched on today. I'm very surprised with all the new things you're doing. I wasn't expecting that much new stuff coming, but it's just like so sick.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The pleasure is ours, my man. Yeah. And we'll look, for what it's worth too, this is one of our longer episodes that we've done. And I didn't touch on more than half the stuff I would have loved to have talked to you about. So once you've got some new music out, when you've got some new music out and stuff, you'll have to come back. We'll have to talk some more. I was about to
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That'd be great. Cause like we're always going to have stuff to talk about. Plus you're releasing new stuff. So it feels like we're like, I think you're a person we could have way more than one time. So
yeah, you get a double bill.
There it is.
Well, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
In the chat as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We'll keep in touch and we'll talk to you soon, my man.
Hell yeah.
Peace.